Good to have you, ma'am. How you feeling today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing excellent. We're about to dive into another episode. It's actually episode 3, The Trace of Between Two DMs, a D&D chat where we essentially dive into what it takes to DM, what you need, what you learned along the way, and hopefully piggyback on the experience, the ample experience therein, in this case, of my man Mim, who is actually one of the first people I met on Twitch. We were kind of chatting about that pre-stream.
Yeah.
You're sort of, I think of you like, not in an age sense, but as like, like my older brother, where I'm like, You pulled me through the sand at one point.
We got through together. Yeah.
You have picked me up. But yeah, man, I appreciate you joining. Before we kind of hop in, could you just sort of give us a rundown on kind of who you are, like where people can find you,
Sure.
and kind of what's what in your world, man?
Yeah. So my name is Mim111 on the internet. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Hover, everywhere. Facebook, well, probably not Facebook anymore. I do a lot of D&D content, art appreciation, art history, story writing and telling. I come from an education in psychology and philosophy, so I like to apply that to story structure and insights, getting into character analysis and story analysis. My heart is really in art history, though, and really trying to pull out stories from that and what people make. And I take that to D&D and feel like D&D is an art form where we all collaboratively work together to tell a story and make art.
Could not agree more. I have felt very actory, which is like a cringe term in the City of Angels, but just about how much I feel like D&D is art. And tabletop is art in that sense, where from whatever angle you want to come from, even if it's like literally designing a cool map or painting a cool mini.
Exactly.
The storytelling aspect, the performance aspect. Yeah, man, that's so rad. Well, I'm curious, man. Like the first thing I typically ask, and I think something that it can be a good point of reference for new DMs or old DMs, is, did you start playing a different system than D&D 5e? What brought you to the TTRPG table, my friend?
Yeah, okay. So like I've been playing for a long time. I was first introduced to Heroes Unlimited, and that was out around the time of 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
And the game I played that I first learned, and this was at like a New Year's party, and I was like 10 years old, talked to my cousin, and he was like, "You want to try this RPG?" I'm like, "What's an RPG?" He's like, "You make a superhero." And I'm like, "I make a superhero? I want to be a superhero." And so I made this robot superhero. My first dice roll was me throwing a grenade as this superhero, and he's like, "Roll that D4." And I'm like, "What's a D4?"
That's hilarious.
Like, okay. So
Yeah.
I rolled that, and ever since then, it's been, I've played, Blades in the Dark, Rifts, Palladium, 3rd edition. 4th edition didn't touch so much. Pathfinder I almost got into, but around when 5th edition came out is when I got really back into role-playing, and especially D&D, and got heavy into it.
Man, that is so cool. That is so cool. I have some familiarity with 3rd edition, but
Yeah.
I had never heard of Heroes Guild. Am I saying it right?
Heroes Unlimited.
Heroes
Yeah,
Unlimited, okay.
It's an old system. I would not recommend it.
Yeah. Like, were you playing off-license superheroes? Like, or you know what I mean? Or was
guess
it
so.
Aquaman? You
You just craft your own as silly things. Like I remember the big ability I wanted to have was to be able to hear anything like a mile away. I never thought conceptually about how that would cause damage to your ear or something. I just wanted to be able to hear it.
Sure.
But that was the system. You would customize components of your body. So each component, each of your forearm or your bicep, they would have to have things in them, like guns would come out or compartments would be there, or you have a healing pouch in your other arm. That's what it was all about. It was all modular in some ways. So it's just fun to imagine what to do with all these body parts in a robot system.
That is absolutely hysterical. Yeah, there's definitely something inherently childlike about any tabletop, but like superheroes in particular are, like just grab people and grab the imagination. Jeef!
Hey, Jeep.
Welcome, Prince. Doesn't like pre-made rules? F it. I make my own system. Hey, man, that's a good life philosophy, Jeef. Let's break it down, dude. No pre-made rules. You're diving in. We're going to be getting, hopefully, to some Jeef tales. To be honest, I do want to get a feel for what y'all's table is, but starting as we always do with sort of what brought you to the table. And it sounds like Mim, essentially has touched a lot of the iterations, not only of D&D, but a bunch of other stuff. Have you ever played Call of Cthulhu?
Oh, yes. Okay, so I have played a bit of 7th edition and got into that. There's a very popular module that if you haven't played Call of Cthulhu, definitely recommend getting The Haunting, because I gave that a go.
Yeah.
And if you've played it, you've probably heard of it.
I have heard of it.
It's a very straightforward, there's a mysterious house and I'm going to pay you to go check into it, but do your research first and don't go insane while that happens. And
don't get cursed.
It was the only time where I learned that you could jump scare while doing roleplay, and I didn't know you really could. I never really tried, but it wasn't until Call of Cthulhu where I learned, yeah, you can totally jump scare your audience and your players.
Wow.
Just by slowly building up things in your atmosphere. You know what I did? That game taught me that what you can do is use your environment to your advantage. So I brought players specifically a few hours before sundown, and I played, very happy music when they're coming in, that, film noir music. And then as the night goes on and the sun is going down, I made sure our table is right by the window. So night was literally trying to creep into the game table. And then later the music slowly starts changing. I made sure to find music that had hints of weird things in it. It'd be film noir music, but every now and then you just hear like a scream in it.
A texture of terror.
Yeah. What was that? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know. It was just something in the music. There was nothing. What are you talking about?
So this was a jump scare at the actual table. Like you were in person.
That wasn't even the jump scare.
Oh, yeah, right. We're not even
It's
there.
all the build-up. All of it is in the build-up. And, when they're investigating the actual house itself, it was all slowing down and saying, as you approach that library and you're looking through all those books and you're seeing the different titles, there's this one title, it's stretching down the length of that spine. And that moment you're DMing when you're being listened to, you really slow down. And if you're elongating and trying to do something, I just slapped the table as loud as I could because the door slammed on them. And they all jumped, and I was like, I didn't know that would work.
Man, that is a beat to be remembered.
It was. Have you ever got a jump scare in a game?
I haven't. I have gotten some really great, like, sort of guttural reactions, but I want to just say hi real quick to Root. Good seeing you, man. We gotta fix those notifications, man. If it's a Samsung, slip me some whispers because I might have the angles. And Jeef, I'm not sure. I have only peripherally, like both The Haunting and Call of Cthulhu, I have narrowly missed playing. In the sense
it's a beginner adventure, yeah.
Yeah, and but I still want to because I don't have much exposure, and I think it would be, for that reason, super fun. I haven't gotten a proper jump scare. I think some of the best reactions I have gotten have been kind of necromantic reactions, right? Whenever things have become either sort of ripped from death or very sort of viscerally destroyed.
Okay.
But man, the use of music there kind of speaks to how we opened, where there really is it sounds so groany, but there's such a specificity and a nuance you can create, and it's just the texture of almost like film scoring, how it drives you, right, and drives sort of the moment, S211FE. Okay, well, I'm going to be doing some Googling, man. I'm going to do some Twitch notification Googling. No, man, that's incredible. Yeah, I love the current Pathfinder D&D beef, just in the sense that I'm just like a popcorn eater. I'm like, what's going on? But it makes me even more want to hop on. Yo, Bionic,
Bio,
get in here. We getting streamed and attacked. Look out, there's 2 DMs. All right, everyone roll for initiative. All 24 people, everyone roll for initiative right now.
Get
right?
ready. You're getting thieves in your chat. Yeah. Trying to take your wallet. What do you do?
Yeah, exactly. Seriously, what's my passive perception? 8? I did not see this coming. Bionic, thank you. Amsterdam, Carmen, get in here, y'all. We're talking D&D. I really appreciate it. Man, are we going to make affiliate right now? That would make my week.
Heck yeah.
I appreciate you guys. 24K. I assume you guys play D&D and that you also know Mim. my guest today. Are you? Am I getting graced with the wake of the Mim himself?
Bio is the one who like got me into Twitch. So
No
it's
way.
really cool to have all these full circles. Yeah.
Man, we were talking before we went live about how like just casually uplifting Twitch is in that sense. Yo, thank y'all so much for rolling through. Between Two DMs is essentially a D&D chat where I try to sit down with new DMs, old DMs, anywhere in between, and pick their brain about what brought them to the table, tricks they've learned, things they wish they knew sooner, to hopefully make it easier for other people to navigate the gatekeeping and get to a game themselves. You guys are the sweetest. I appreciate you guys rolling through. Well, let's not keep them waiting, man. All right?
Yeah, all right.
It is time. It is time to move forward.
What you got?
Did you start off as a DM, or did you start off as a player, specifically with D&D? And did that influence your POV significantly, or you feel like nah?
Yeah. So I was saying earlier that my first experience with any role playing was making this weird robot that liked to throw grenades because I was a 10-year-old and didn't know any better, right? And once that experience was over, because I was visiting some friends, I came home and the weeks following, like, I want to keep playing, but I didn't know anybody that played it. So what I had to do is just make my own characters. And I feel like a lot of people start off just imagining characters, or at least that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I thought about what kind of characters do I want to play? And I found myself making so many characters that I realized, all these characters I could play at once if I was a DM.
and about how old were you? Like from 10 to when?
11.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 9 months. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh my goodness.
And then that's how it went. I'm like, I had a younger brother. I made it sound like he died. I have a younger brother, and we eventually got together and were like, okay, let's play this game. And it wasn't much different than when you take action figures or toys and you come up with dialogue for them. It wasn't much different than that, honestly. But
that's
over
enough.
The years,
I mean, that's enough.
It grew from there.
Yeah. And then the more you read, the more you take in, the more your palette changes, right? It influences.
That's exactly
Man, guys, I apologize for not like properly going through and thanking everybody, but I truly am blown away and so happy to see everyone here. Matt Bro, Amsterdam Rose, Country Boy 6969. Slip into my whispers, dog. Let's talk. But seriously, everyone, you guys are so sweet. Mim truly is the man. That is an amazing journey because you're able to have so much experience. I mean, because there really is no way to get better quite like just hopping on the bike and riding for 10,000 hours, right? Were there, like, how long before you ran an adventure book? And is that even your preference? Like, do you still, like, is it 90% homebrew, 50-50, or?
That's a good question, because a lot of people ask that, how do I start? I remember being in that position as a kid and thinking, I want a DM, how do I start? And there are a lot more tools now to do it, and it's really awesome, especially if you are willing to be the DM. There are essentials kits and starters kits that you can now find in stores, and a lot of people debate, should I start with D&D? I would say go ahead and try the $30 one, or something around $30 for the essentials kits.
Yeah.
Get a feel for really what it's like with this system, and then go out to other systems. Unless you found one you're really attached to. There's a lot out there to choose from. D&D is just usually the most well-known and has so many tools out there that you can get a lot of it for free. In fact, there is a basic rule set that you can get for free on PDF, and you can start from that and play from that. The adventure modules you can come up with, I mean, it's so easy that I'll tell you, for one of the first sessions I had was literally just a farmer wants your help to find out why wolves are attacking his farm, and it was just goblins just didn't like him and were just poisoning his crops. And that's it. You don't need much to start with.
No, that's enough.
Because you're just learning the system. And I wouldn't recommend to try and go into D&D or something, role playing, and think I need the most complex and profound story and character. It's first just get the rules familiar and get your feet wet. Have fun with the friends that you have and just get into that.
That's well put. I mean, because whenever you're diving into the homebrew while also learning, it's sort of like swimming in the ocean. You're like, oh, I should have learned to swim in a pool. Like,
yeah.
You know.
You had a good question though too about modules. That there are plenty of modules out there, and I'll definitely give everybody the license to personalize the modules for yourself. You don't need to read them verbatim.
Yes.
So if you get those books, skim over them, read through them, get an idea of really what it is, but don't feel compelled to represent that book for your friends. It's a tool for you. You're telling a story to your friends, and it's a supplement to you. It's a different perspective, because what I find some people do is they'll read verbatim from the book thinking, I need to represent the book as best as I can in this adventure because they wrote it, they know what they're doing, I don't. But that's not why your friends and why your players are there. They're there for your style and your story, and they trust you, and you ought to trust them that they respect you too, and give yourself that license and that confidence to just go with the moment, have fun with it.
Yeah.
That if you're reading the module and it says there's this old orc there and they want to kill you, if you think a different character would be interesting, change it up, change it to or make them a villain, make them a hero, do whatever you want.
The reskin, right, can be so empowering. Man, I appreciate that so much. Agreed, Root, that the ultimate DM tool is unquestionably the internet. Let's call it what it is. Okay, that's also apparently like a student's best friend. Anyone, you want to become a lawyer? You're on your way. Call me Mame. Appreciate you rolling by. Toss some hay for us as well. Enjoy it. And Jeef, I clearly need to pick your brain specifically because I think you've got an inside track on some of Mim's perspective. But man, no, you're totally right. Like the reskin can be such an easy solution to whatever you have going on. Like you talk about the Essentials kit. The first 5e campaign I ever, and really, I mean, outside of just a lot of improv and performance, that's really my background. I have some familiarity with 3e, but I came really as a player. And the first time that I DM'd was the Dragon of Icespire Peak adventure book, which honestly I thought was great. Like, toss a dragon out there, get him in flight, make him climb a mountain. I mean, that's just some classics, some orcs to bash. And there's a whole section of these acolytes of Thalos. Mild spoilers for Dragon of Icespire Peak. But long story short, they can innate cast some spells and basic cantrips, and they can also cast Revivify. But all of it is through the Storm God. And I remember looking up Revivify. I was like, okay, Revivify. Oh shit. Okay, wow. Oh, from the dead. Oh, snap. Yep. Okay, diamond. Ooh, but wait, no material cost via the stat block. Interesting. And then I look up what is innate casting, and I fall down that, right? And then whenever it comes and we go live and I'm describing the storm, I had this beat where I was like, oh shit, the storm is going to revivify it. And it used him like a tether, almost like a lightning rod.
That's really cool.
Through the body of this acolyte. And I appreciate that. I mean, I bring it up because it's like one of the 7 moves I've ever made where I'm like, that worked. But But it was really the first time early as a DM where I saw, oh snap, the rules weren't broken. Nothing was changed. Right. I just added a little more paprika, you know what I mean? And you're right, that is what brings your
the spice
table.
Of your style.
Yeah. And Matt Pro saying it, reskinning, exactly. Something entirely different than Party Necromancer. Agreed. And probably the Ranger as well, but those might be 3 separate conversations.
That's true.
That is so good. Okay, well let me just move along. It sounds like you. Well, actually, I kind of want to button it. Do you still, like your campaign that you stream? That is, largely homebrew. Is it sort of borrowed from an adventure book, or I guess what I'm asking in general is, of the campaigns you have active, are they mostly more falling into the homebrew realm these days?
Mostly yes, and to give you an idea of what I was saying before with using modules to your advantage, I use Candlekeep, Mysteries, and Strixhaven, and I've pulled the maps and some the scenario designs to change the landscape of my game. So what I'll do is I'll say, this map looks really cool, but the story that the module has for it, I don't want. So I'll literally just take the map and I'll put it in my game, and I'll write everything else I want for that. But on the other hand, there are some earlier chapters, if you read Candlekeep Mysteries, there's the Shemshine tale that I thought was fantastic.
Wait a minute, and a Shemshine tale?
It was the lullaby of Shemshine, and this whole concept was that throughout the module, in case you don't know, all the adventurers are dealing with investigating a book, and this book was a pop-up book that told a lullaby, but it changed and turned into a very haunting tale of this shadow that you had to crush with a rock. And it was so fantastic that I didn't really change it too much. I just made it fit into the backstory of my characters.
Jeef got him with the pitchfork.
That's right. Yep. You probably did. And that's
get in here,
what you gotta
do.
do. I totally recommend just taking the modules, and you trust your gut on how you want to bring it into your characters and their backstory. Or literally what I've done several times is just taken a map and just put on my own designs and encounters and creatures and story for it entirely, changing the name of it too, because that's what they're meant to do. They're meant to save you time. And I can remember talking to Ed Greenwood. If Ed Greenwood's the one who designed Forgotten Realms, and everything was lifted up off my shoulders when I met him at a conference, and he said, I wrote this realm to save you time, not to tell you how to DM.
Damn.
So just make the Forgotten Realms yours. Your Forgotten Realms is different than mine, and that's the intent.
Yeah.
So you have the author's permission to do so.
Which is so rare. Like, that is the opposite, right? I mean, typically the writer is on set just like, yo.
You're not doing it right. That's not what I wanted.
I mean, that's so well put, man. And it that also kind of plays into, and we'll talk about it, but like the whole prep process where you talked about kind of flipping through the adventure book, getting familiar with the space, the storyline.
Yeah.
But then when you make it your own, it's so much more flexible to how you're going to use it, how you're going to tell your own story or your own tweaks. And it makes it so much easier in the moment to be connected and a little bit more improvisational than feeling like you need to get like you're on a history test and have to get the date and location exactly correct.
Yep.
That's well put. Game in Air, thank you for the follow. Thank you for rolling through. I'm Carpe the DM. I'm here with @Mim111. We're both two DMs. You are between two DMs. And here on this channel, other than whenever I'm dying on Fridays in Elden Ring, we basically do D&D chats. I do some live homebrew prep. And I also sometimes stream a little bit of live play. But I'm so happy to be joined by Mim. We're basically going through, his journey as a DM, how he's learned it, how he approaches things at his table. And I'm really just appreciating your perspective on it. And I feel that as well, Jeef, just in terms of wanting to kind of let a preset adventure be what it is and kind of do your own thing. I need to pick your brain more about your angles. That's so great. Mapro says, I've been using my own setting for so long, and I've been DMing for a very long time. There's not out there that doesn't inspire me. TV shows, inspired. Watching movies, inspired. Out on a bus, don't do drugs. I see it, I love it. I'm writing a guy about meth. From all corners it comes in. Yeah, I get that, man. That's true. I mean, I think I was actually hanging out with Logan, the DM, who is a fantastic guy. He's on Twitter mostly. I think he may be hopping over to Twitch in the near future. But I asked him the same question I'll be asking Mim, maybe, if I don't just keep running my flap, which is, what does prep look like for you? And he basically was like, well, if I'm playing a video game and I get a cool idea, is that prep? If I'm reading a dope graphic novel and I see an inspiration for a trap, like, does that count? And it becomes so efficient whenever you're able. For me, I just have a Google document, right? And then I'll filter it into the game sessions. But as you start to play more, you see how the mechanics of D&D work. And that's really the beauty of it, is just fitting the world, fitting a puzzle, fitting a social or combat encounter to the structure of the rules that are presented. Yeah, dope third session in with D&D and DMing. Never thought I'd have so much fun with it.
That's good.
That's amazing. I need to check it out. Game in Air. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, come. Are you streaming your own games? Like, what's going on? I'm gonna check that out after the fact. I feel that first time DMing, getting after it. Agreed. Anything that you're doing. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see the game with new eyes. That's why playing with new players, I think, can be so uplifting.
Yes.
And prep is anything that gets you in the mindset of a campaign, true. Even if that's just taking a long walk through a beautiful set of woods.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, on that point of walking through the woods, one of my favorite random pieces of inspiration was I was walking through the woods and I saw this tree that was lifted up off the ground, and I could see all the roots out of the ground, and it was as though the tree was standing there. And I was like, you know what, if that were really big, that would look like a cool place to build a city. And I'm like, a city within the roots of a tree? I'm like, why haven't I know maybe a lot of people it's intuitive to them, but I got the inspiration from just looking at the roots of a tree that I'm like, totally could see how that could look like a hand or a creature or a city or an entrance or a weapon. There's so many things that you can take just from a walk.
Did it end up being the entrance to a larger
Oh, you know
city? Okay, cool.
Oh yeah.
were they gnomish, or like what was going on? What elf? Or...
Oh, the one I did was elves. Yeah,
Elves,
it
cool.
turned out to be elves who are all poisoned, and the players are trying to save this forest and what happened to it. And yeah, all this can happen just by a walk in the woods, that you see something, or like what they were saying when you're watching something. I mean, for me, looking at art too, I see something, an emotion being evoked, or a setting, or colors. There's things you can talk about and give your narrative to people and players too, and make into your story.
Dude, yeah, 1,000%. You just got to be open to it. I feel that game in there. Well, that's good. You're doing it. I'm sure you are giving them an amazing game. Let us know if you do stream anything. We'd love to support you. Give you some shout outs. And likewise with all you guys, man. I really, after this, we'll be going back through and trying to connect. I appreciate it. It's really what it's all about. And that's like sort of the root of D&D, right? Is this sort of collaborative experience that honestly, Twitch is one of the nice technological angles that makes that easier. Well, let me ask you, Mim. So, like, I feel like for a lot of DMs, especially new ones, beginning the campaign, right? Like starting it is the biggest hurdle. Now, putting aside like the anxiety and the procrastination, I assume you run a session 0, right? Like, does that? Can you kind of just walk us through what that would look like if you had 4 people that are creating characters? Like, walk us through it.
Yeah. So the first thing, the caveat to that is every DM's gonna have a different session 0, and that's what makes it your style, and that's the heart of D&D. That you're gonna hear everyone saying this, that you have to appreciate their varying perspective. So although I'll give you my style, this isn't prescribing it as the style. This is just what works for me.
Gotcha.
And something I'm doing is, anytime I'm starting off a campaign, I get a moralistic landscape. So I try and figure out what is the message, what is the theme. And you'll find it, talking to me about D&D, I'm going to bring up theme a lot. That I try to think, what will be the theme of this campaign? And it could be something like magic versus technology, and that already gives me a cool theme to work with. I'm gonna go, I have a whole faction that likes magic, a whole faction likes technology, and then you pivot that, and you're gonna have some people who like both and some people who hate both. I already have 4 factions. Now I have a whole moral compass to work off of. And if in story structure, I believe it's called 4-corner plot device. And from there, all I do is draw out a map, and however you want to go for a map, you don't even need it, but I will come up with a map and say, where are these factions going to go? And then I'll say to the players, here's what the landscape looks like. What kind of character do you want to have in this? And then here are the kind of characters players come up with. And if they say something like, I want to play a tabaxi rogue who loves shiny things, immediately I'm going to start thinking, is it magical or technological shiny things? Because I have that theme to pull from, right? And now if they say, I like the technological ones, then I'll start asking them more questions. And from there, and from what the player provides, you can build that campaign and build your story from that session 0. Because usually I'll do it in private beforehand.
Sure.
But I'll say, you have just made a city out of this tabaxi character that you like, and I'm going to put them on the map here. And they've just done a lot of the bulk of the work for me, and they've personalized the campaign for them.
Totally.
So when they look at the map and they see Tabaxi region, they know everything about it because they mostly made it.
Man.
That, in short, is how I'll do it.
Yeah.
That said, there are plenty of games where I went into it with 0 prep. I could start a game right now. I'm sure you could too. And,
right.
You'll just look for a prompt and go from there.
Well, to be real, I'm like very interested in this guy that throws grenades. That like I don't like you know like I want access. I want access to a similar character. Like just straight up like all he says is G.I. Joe. Like that's my guy. You know. But I want to dive into that a little bit more, because if okay, so I'm a tabaxi, and I'm like, no, it's like technological shiny. Like that's like I want new cutting edge stuff that would power an automaton, power stuff that would whatever it would be, give me access to another astral plane, whatever. That's a session 0. You're essentially taking a player's backstory and incorporating it in your campaign, themes. Yeah. Is that, and I love that, man. That's something that like immediately as I was sort of reskinning things, I actually had someone join my Dragon of Icespire Peak campaign about 3 months into it. And so we had an even deeper session 0, like a proper one, like you're describing.
Yep.
And it allowed for that for the first time, which was a cool way. So it allowed my kind of second act and now into the third act of our campaign have that influence. But can you sort of break it down even further? Would you take, I mean, of course you could plant an area in a town that is known for that, right? Certain, artificers or scientists, whatever it would be. But are you saying, is it even more than that? Is that like driving the plot and the necessity of the action within the campaign too?
Oh, okay. Yeah. To be fair, I'm being very concise with what can take months, if not a year, to write and prepare.
Got you. Sure.
On the flip side, there is just the completely improvised things. But yeah, to break that down more, I think it pivots well to know that some players aren't interested in giving that much depth of thought into their character. They really do just want to show up to the table and say, I roll my dice to see if I hit. And that's perfectly cool too. And for them, I might even just ask them very, very cursory questions after I get that feel for them that, they're saying, I don't really care about my backstory. Be like, okay, so let's say you're playing a ranger, and what race are you playing? And they say, I'm lizard folk. I'm like, okay, cool. Do you like magic or technology? I'm going back to my theme, and I'll be very straightforward and simple to them. I won't ask them questions that are complex, like, who are your parents? Where are they? What do you stand for? Who do you love? Who would you die for? Those all come up later, by the way. But I'll just ask them quite straight from the theme. I'll just be like, do you like magic or technology? And they'll say, I don't really care, which is an option.
Yes,
yes. All right, you're indifferent. And then I'll say, I have this group of people in the game, and I say this as though I've already prepared it, but I'm improvising in the moment to say, I'm just going to come up with my own kind of group to match theirs. To match this player and what they're saying.
100%.
They're an indifferent ranger that doesn't like magic or technology. Great. I already have that 4 pivot plot line that I was talking about to say, there's a group of people who hate both. Do you think your character would be part of that faction? And again, no is an option. And they might say, no, I don't really like that option. And be like, okay, you're a true, let's say Ronin. You're a rogue. Are you affiliated with anybody? Because that might be my next question, to just figure out where they align. And I guess ultimately the question will come to as well, especially for session 0, which we're talking about, is how are you going to meet the party? Because ultimately that is the player's job to figure out why they care about the other characters. Because at the end of the day, you're hanging out with other human beings, and there has to be some cohesion there and some reason for you to be with them. So meet them somewhere with that. Like, what is your desire to work with others, and how do you think that would work with the party? And whatever they come up with, work with that. If we have this, what did I say they were? A lizard folk ranger that hates both magic and technology, maybe they're trying to find someone that aligns with their interests to find something new. And someone in the party might be that. We might have a wizard that says, the war between magic and technology is just tearing my country apart, and I need to find my own faction. Already I'm seeing this completely improvised in this moment to say this ranger and that wizard might have a bonded interest, and that would be a good reason to start a party to say they're both hurt by this war by somehow. That's what they can bond over. And now we have a whole political landscape to build upon even more.
I like that. I'm like, when are we playing? Thursdays?
Yeah.
Because that's almost like the second level, right? Because you're now going from taking a player's session 0 backstory, incorporating it in the campaign, to taking multiple backstories, right, and connecting them within the campaign.
Exactly.
And chef's kiss, man. Like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's absolutely where it's at. Thank you so much for that, man. I got to dive into some of these comments. Kevo Soup murdered me on this. I want to play D&D. Then D ampersand D. Sorry, lol. That's so good. I love that. I love just that, like, we would fucking die over one. We'll die over one. Yeah, listen, Kevin, Mapro, Mongolian. I mean, it's time. I think it's time for you guys to take it to the Discord and and get a stream going. Man, that's so rad. Yeah, Gaming Air was also saying that he's got they, I don't mean to mislabel you at all, two roll of the dice and battle people, and one that has a really developed backstory. 100%. And as Mim was kind of speaking to that, that's in the first 15 pages of the DM guide. is similar to the pillars, like, adventure, exploration, role play, etc. They talk about the different types of players, right?
Yep.
Like the combat guy, the actor, the explorer.
Exploration.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I'm sure we've all had people, or at least I hope we've all had one as a DM, where we haven't really been sure if they're interested. Like, super quiet. That's kind of the type of person they are, which is, of course, completely fine. But you as a DM are kind of always trying to, like, make sure, like, okay, did the hook land? Like, are you cool with that? You're trying to touch base, trying to, of course, get them fully engaged. And I've recently just come to realize that I have a guy at my table, and I've known him for years. I know he's like this. But occasionally he'll pop in with references where I'm like, you even caught that? You know what I mean? Like, he's just very quiet. But he's just, like, perched, listening. Constantly. So good on you, Game and Air. I mean, knowing what your party, what their type of player is enormous to finding success at the table.
Exactly.
Understanding what they want to react to, what they want to be a part of. That's awesome. Well, let me and
that's actually a good question to add to session 02, is just kind of get a gauge, as your intent of DM, get a gauge of what kind of play the players are after, because some players might say, I'm just happy to hang out with you all. And that's a good cue to remember. You don't need to overburden that person with things and questions. Just let them be at the table, because guaranteed when the game starts, some other player will be happy to take up space and chat, and that player will be happy to listen and observe. Because us as human beings and social folk, we do a lot of watching and listening. We're on Twitch. We all know this. We all appreciate that. It's the same thing at a D&D table. People are very happy to hang out. I had one player who would show up inebriated all the time, and they were happy to be like that all the time.
That's funny.
I at one point, just to be sure, I was like, you are having a good time at the table, right? You're not bored, and that's why you're enjoying the devil's lettuce, and he's like, no, this is a good time. He's like, I love this, it's great, I look forward to it. I'm like, okay, perfect, this is your thing then.
He's like, I'm just trying to come here, get zonked, and and watch as you guys live play Lord of the Rings, and I occasionally make rolls. Dude, listen,
that's exactly
that's a vibe. Like, that guy is going to get more and more invested. Like, the moment they start role playing heavily, you'll know you're like a triple black belt.
It's like you said, the player will eventually make a reference. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think you were here. Like, you were here, but I didn't think you were here to pick up on that. Well, he's like, and then they'll be like, yeah, I totally caught up on that, and I'm gonna stab them for saying that. I'm like, okay, make your roll.
Oftentimes the hard part, if you don't know your table immediately, is learning kind of what everyone's vibe is, their preference. But as always, whether you've known them for a long time or they're new, that's a great example of, like, just checking in. Just a simple out of game, away from table, we good? Truly, how you feeling? Like, that's so good. Jeef, Mim, it says Mim is verbatim talking about the conversation Jeef and you had before the current adventure. Love that.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's so thoughtful, and I'm sure that seeing that kind of worked in, I mean, like, I've tried to do more of that, but it's something that I really wish I'd heard, because it is super, super valuable. And agreed, Matt Pro. Occasionally you got to toss in a 420 game in there. Come on. It's called high fantasy for a reason. So we've talked a little bit.
I've never heard that. That's so good.
That's great. I'm in Canada, quite legal. We just order it like you would a wine, have a glass, enjoy a bowl. No, agreed, man. I live in California. I feel you, man. I mean, would you rather see someone come at you with, a loaded shotgun or a loaded bong? Or loaded up on whiskey, or loaded up on Afghani Kush.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? But man, that's we all get it. But we've talked a bit, or honestly extensively in such a great way about taking a backstory, right? Session 0. So let's act now. We're moving. Like, you're a couple sessions in. You've started to get some traction. Things have broke. Maybe they're a couple levels up. Who knows? Whenever you are prepping now for a session, like, can you, I mean, are you writing out dialogue, or are you kind of bullet pointing? Is it more description? Is it, do you pre-roll initiative, for example? I'm just really curious, like, how that prep process has developed, and kind of what it looks like for you on average.
The average Okay, so you're saying you're comparing the difference between starting the campaign to preparing for an ongoing campaign.
Well, you know,
right?
there is a comparison. I'm more meaning like if we're in the shoes of a new DM and now we've like, oh, okay, we've done it. I'm on my 7th session. Like people like it. Oh, snap. Oh, they keep coming back.
Yeah.
You know, cool. Then, you know, how do you lock in? Because I feel like sometimes as things gain momentum, a new DM is like, okay, fuck, I got to prep 5 pages and shabba boop. And that in and of itself is often excessive, but can certainly be taxing. So I'm just curious how you as a veteran, you know, kind of what you learned along that journey of prep.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a great question actually, because I know I felt, especially from the beginning of DMing and then even at the beginning of DMing sessions, that you want your players to have the best time as possible. So much so that you might even feel compelled to make sure it's perfect, and that perfectionism creeps in, right? And it's not fair. So it's not fair to yourself to expect perfection in a game that is meant to be broken in many ways. So a lot of the times what I'll do is to prepare ahead of time. I'll have an idea of where the story's meant to go. You know, in storytelling, revelations is key, and by that I mean what are the players going to learn? What are the characters going to learn? So when the next session is on the horizon, look at it and go, what are the players going to learn as a group? And how are they going to learn it? And who's going to try and stop them? That's a very concise way, I would say, to put it. And what you can do to break that down even further is list out your players and their characters. And there's your B plots now. So you have the overall group revelation, and now your characters. You know, what is our ranger, lizard, rogue going to learn in the next session? What are they going to learn about in those politics? And how are they going to learn? Well, they're going to find a book that reveals some sort of genealogy that relates their parents to the people who are affiliated with this faction.
Yeah.
Well, that would tear them apart to know that their family was a part of this faction that hurt their home. Well, who's going to try and stop them from learning that now? Well, that could be, say, the faction themselves. You know, they're transporting some goods and they have that on them, and they don't want anyone to take them, because sometimes the mere obstacle is people don't want their stuff stolen.
Sure.
They don't want their stuff stolen.
Sure.
And now,
that's me right now. I mean,
yeah, I don't want my stuff stolen. And then ultimately, it's the hook. It's the inciting incident. You know, I've just worked my way back to the beginning. Why are they going to do that? And it could be that wizard that we were talking about earlier, that friend, says, hey, I know we've allied with each other over this war that's happening, and I know that there's some information that's coming from that town to this town. Gotcha. Help me get that information and stop that carriage. We've just written a scenario. I could see that session taking 3 hours long, having a good time, setting up an ambush, fighting with the people guarding the carriage.
How long does any ambush take, right? Just hit the e-brake. Right. I mean, anytime, obviously, like a door can be a potential ambush to someone, but
that's true.
It's so funny to me. Anytime I have like an old woman in a wagon, you know, I love that. There's so many red flags to my players, you know, whatever. Maybe they're just idiosyncratic to our game. But, okay, so that's a great example, man. So it sounds like, Mim, you are oftentimes almost working your like from a you know, beat by beat with revelation in mind, but coming from the perspective of your players' discovery.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. I definitely a lot of times will do that, right? Where I'll be sort of like, okay, you know, 1 through 5, 1 through 6, whatever the table is, trying to think about what is approaching them, what is on their sort of specific, like you said, B plot. Yeah. I feel like, and this is just more kind of me being interested by this and sharing it, is I feel like I oftentimes come from the NPC's angle, where, you know, because there is such conflict, I feel like I'm oftentimes, you know, thinking about like the conflict that's happening within the city that they're around, within the ecosystem of the swamp they're passing through, etc.
Yeah.
And but it's with that same end in mind, right? Because these two forces are about to cross paths and be impacted by each other's wants, needs, information communicated, right? And that's awesome. So is that usually you know, are you writing out, okay, 1 through 5 players and then bullet points with that? I mean, is that normally like also when does prep happen for you? Is it 2 days before? Is it the same day?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Actually, yeah. To summarize what you're saying too, and by the way, anyone listening, if you Google scenario design 5e, you should get an article I wrote actually
Oh, let's go.
that will break down the steps on how to do it. Because yeah, I'll bullet point out a way of what they're intended to learn, but also get an idea of what the mechanics are going to be. Have those mechanics in mind because the DM guide has an encounter calculator in there for you. That doesn't mean it's the ultimate reference, but it's a good starting point.
Yes.
And start with that if you haven't played D&D at all, especially. Start with that to get an idea of how many mobs and NPCs to throw at your players. And then the more you play, the more you'll realize that encounter calculator isn't very good because it's impossible to have a perfect calculation for these encounters. But you'll get an idea of how your players are. You know, are they exceptionally strategic? Are they ranged? Are they close combat? Do they prefer puzzles? All this will take into account with how you fill your scenario to change our ambush caravan scenario where it's just combat into something like, say, it could be a roleplay scenario, and I might make, if I know the players are into that, I might make one of the characters on that wagon related to them somehow.
Yes.
And now we're going to navigate them learning that and having that question of, well, I don't want to kill them, and how do I deal with this? Or on a more mechanical point of view, I could say that the books and the wagon are locked in this intricate puzzle. And I might just pull out a Rubik's Cube or some sort of magical puzzle and say, now let's solve this.
Yeah.
So there's ways to just filter the information going to the players. And I like what you were saying earlier, too, because of acting as the opponent, the antagonist to your players. You do have to think about who is trying to stop the players from doing what they want to do, because that's the key to story is conflict. And someone represents that conflict, and that's your antagonist. That's what the word means. Yeah. So how are they doing that, and why are they doing that? And I like to emphasize the why to really get deep into the story, to say, yeah, they want to kill the lizard folk's family. That might be all that you might need in many cases. If you want to dig deep into the story, why are they doing that? And that's where you really have fun with then rationalizing an antagonist doing something probably very malevolent, but will be fun for the players to hate.
And that is absolutely 100% accurate, right? Could not co-sign that harder, but that's also eloquently put. And on an even higher meta level, for my theme slut, as Jeff puts it, dude, like that's part of our theme of D&D being art. I mean, everything you've just described is exactly in terms of what's motivating, is what really creates such compelling fiction in the media we take in. Yeah, man. I mean, and that's something oftentimes, in my experience, adventure books don't give you enough of. And I feel like that can sometimes trip up a new DM, where they'll have, you know, the bandit king of the high woods, right, descending upon this outpost, and that's sort of the final kind of push of this level 1 to 6 campaign. Except you're never really explained like why this bandit king is like marauding over this area, like what his background is, where he came from. Was he born in these woods? Is he a Robin Hood type? Like what happened to motivate this sort of reign of terror? And that's something that clearly, I mean, obviously a sharp dude, but somebody that, you know, comes from kind of a literary mind and can formulate storytelling aspects. Character motivation is so consistent in terms of giving you organic, genuine reactions. Yeah. So that's interesting to hear that, Mim. Let me holler at some of these comments because I appreciate you, Matt Bro. Saying just as a general rule of thumb is to not spend more time prepping than playing. If you have a 3-hour sesh, 3-hour prep max. Absolutely love that, Matt Bro. That's cool.
Pretty good. It's a good rule of thumb. I like that.
Yeah, that's really well put. I definitely would co-sign that. I feel like occasionally, especially if you get ahead of yourselves with session 0 and sort of understanding where the story's going, or if there's an adventure book, it can almost be half. It can almost be like half whatever the session length would be. But it's going to vary for every person, and there's also oftentimes going to be a section where it's about to be a critical battle in a bridge, and you need to get the map right, and you need to figure out everything, and that just sort of happens. But it's a good problem to have, right? You'll get better at prep as time goes on, so there's no real Excel sheet fillable that works for every person. Very well put. You build your favorite ways the longer you spend time as a DM. I couldn't agree more, Matt Pro. Extremely well put, my friend. It's kind of like what Mim was saying. Like he began with such different systems, also earlier in his life, and just that, repetition as an educator, being so effective. I mean, just you don't really know what you don't know until you're faced with it, and very much so in D&D. It's like, you want to grapple the giant, okay? You know what I mean? And it takes you a while to maybe know the size rules or the grapple rules or
That's a good point. I like that. I want to add on to that, but if anyone listening too, that rule checking and talking about and debating how the game can be, I think ought to be some of the fun of the game too. I know it can be very contentious at times,
right?
But a lot of the fun is asking, can that work? Can I use a catapult as a sneak attack? If I'm quiet with it and sneak up behind the orc, can I use that? A question like that, that's the fun of the game, is to say, like, can that work? And the rule checking, I think everyone's I'd like to think everyone is very forgiving and patient, and that when they ask something like about the size rules and grappling, which is a meme now, to say that every time you bring up grappling, it's a rules check. To know, like, that's okay. That's okay to check the rules.
Dude, there is so much grappling in my game.
Yeah.
I mean, there was 17 grapples last night. That's hysterical. I'm going to get to that question, Game in Air. I'm sorry to cut you off, though, Mim. Yeah.
Yeah, no, go.
Oh, well, yeah, that's just your...
That was it.
That's hysterical. Matt Bro was also saying that they're crazy. Sometimes they'll just go nuts prepping everything in the deep end of the world. That's also can play into the 420 sesh. I have no doubt, my friend. But it's also sometimes fun to do that. I mean, sometimes you have time. Mm-hmm. It's Sunday evening, and damn, like, I'm gonna write this villain's monologue. Like, let's go.
It can be fun, and if you want to spend the time doing it, then go for it. But I guess the important point is, don't feel pressured to reach for that perfection, because so much of the best content will be spontaneous and improvised anyway.
Yes. I think oftentimes if I'm feeling like, man, I haven't done enough prep, it's the same day, I sometimes straight up will just go and read a chapter of some of my favorite fantasy novels.
Oh, yeah,
and just take some of the imagery and some of the prose, and I mean, not like directly plagiarize it that bad, but more just thinking about, like, why did that work? Like, I recently was reading, there's just a small image of a young girl who was just running, was so happy, and was playing so hard that this shimmering sweat, I mean, almost like a coat, like an oiled glisten, right? Yeah. And the speed of her feet carrying her through these, for her, almost shoulder-high barley, left little bulbs, like, stuck to these moist cheeks. And that image of a child, like, red-faced, huffing, and their face so sweaty that it's almost grabbed particles of the land around them. Like, that to me just was so evocative. Like, I haven't
that's so cool,
really mentioned it until now, but I was just reading, Earthsea, the fourth book.
Okay.
I haven't read it, I haven't finished the series, and man, her stuff is always so good to me. But I don't want to get too offbeat, and I appreciate these comments. Game in Air, he asked, could we share? So sorry, I did not mean to list label you at all. Game in Air asked if we could share some examples of how you'd relate that story, like the Bandit King's motivation, to the players. So if it's cool, man, maybe like crack us off. Maybe we'll like just do one or two. I mean, not in like some like battle rap scenario, but we could like collaboratively. Like the first thing that jumps out to me in the situation of, you're in some sort of frontier type situation, it's the high forest, and you have someone that has created more or less like a fort, like some sort of fortress inside the woods. To me, if you're a robber, I always, of course, want to sometimes make my guys redeemable. I mean, for me, he's probably going to be, sort of like a, East London, kind of like cudgel boy, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of motivation, what if every single... what if the majority of the people he robs from are left alive? What if a lot of what he is rifling through goes untouched? Is he only looking for Ethereum? Ethereum, Electrum. I'm such an idiot. Ethereum. Dude, he's from San Francisco. But is he only, is he only taking things made out of copper, out of tin?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Things like that. The justification being that he's trying to amass enough. He needs 7 tons of copper, to fill this void in this temple, to bring something back or to allow something to happen. Is he cursed, right? Is there something motivating him that he's looking like he's shaking down everyone that's passing through because he's looking for the last component or the missing piece of a treasure map that's critical? I mean, in the early stages of throwing spaghetti, it often seems a bit cliche, but for me, one thing I know from, I'm just throwing out ideas, but just from that, I like the idea of this guy robbing people, and it's not about amassing wealth. Like, he's looking for something, right?
I like that.
But what do you think, Mim? Feel free to riff on that, or just throw it into the garbage can and be like, what would be a cool use of that if the adventure guide gave us this bandit king but didn't justify why he's there? What does that look like?
There's a couple ways to go about that. I would say one, usually what I'll do is look at what do the players want, what are their characters looking for, and can I make my character directly opposed to that that bandit king. So if the players have something like they really want to find their family, maybe this bandit king really wants to stop them, because if they find their family, the people that they work for, they'll be entangled somehow. That could be a simple motivation. That might be all you need. But what you're talking about made me think of something more inspirational. And if there's inspiration, I always want to run with that.
Follow it. Yeah.
So when you're talking about a bandit king that really wants to find all the copper, what I thought about, especially when you made the note about making a relatable bandit king, I was thinking about, well, what if this character, this bandit king, they had this mining family, and there was this incident where there was this cave-in that killed all their family, and they kept trying to pull all the copper they could out of the mining shaft, but they never found their family. They never found the bodies to really confirm that they were dead. But they now have this belief that if they just amass the amount of copper to satiate the god that was of this mine, maybe they could at least see their dead family. So now you have a hook of, in this city, there's this person who's stealing all this copper, and we think they're in that woods, but why?
Yeah.
And to relate that to the players, to make them find out, maybe they could go to the Bandit King's, the lead could be, we think the Bandit King, they were at this house, they have this tree lodge, and don't put anything in there except for exposition. Just keep it empty, because you want the players to go there and find notes of this god of this mining shaft, or maybe some graffiti and hatred and notes and depictions of this god, and it's torn apart and decapitated. Really evoke a hatred towards this god, but also show that there's no copper there. Because if the Bandit King is after copper so much, why isn't it here? Should be the next question, right? But you've also at the same time told them, well, they really hate this god, but why do they hate this god? And there's this revelation of the antagonist hates this god, and now the story will be learning about why this Bandit King lost their family and wants to amass this copper. And I'm tempted to divulge more into that, but I think you can see where I'm going.
Well, that's great, man. in that presentation of it, for me, now makes me want to make him a little bit more heavy-handed, like a little more blood on his hands. Like, it seems to me like he has sort of snapped. But it is still, there is redemption in that story, because it's heartbreaking.
They just want to know about their family.
Like, it's heartbreaking. And especially the idea of someone spending that much effort to remove something and then just being consumed by it. Like, it snaps and this connection is made, and now that's what his whole life is about. That's interesting. If you add the sort of religious or the sort of divine aspect, then it definitely can justify further the weight of it, the comprehensive nature of the effect. That's amazing. So I missed some of these and they were gold. I apologize. Matt Bros is talking about the grapple monster is a real thing, eating you. And Rudival Beer is saying, only if you launch yourself. I love that, in terms of being able to either grapple the grapple monster or presumably a giant. That's hilarious. Jeeve had a great point, and this is something that I don't always touch on, but I feel, and you know what Bear's mentioning, is that, he hates doing same day and night before prep. Always felt so incredibly rushed when he has to do that. Felt like the session might have been lacking from what I wanted it to be. Totally. I mean, I like to at least have it, like, typically for me, Fridays is a day where I can catch up. So a lot of times I play on Tuesday. Agreed. I definitely don't like to do it same day because I like to sort of manage that wavelength to be able to come in high energy, execute how I want to execute and just have fun and be on my feet. But is that like a general rule of thumb for you, Mim? Like, I mean, like when does your prep normally happen? Kind of the day before or same day, or how does
No, like for me personally, I will be prepping a week before the session, given that my sessions are a week apart. As soon as I know I have a party, I'm prepping. And it's like someone was saying earlier, I don't know who you talked to before, like once you get thoughts of something, I take a note down. If I get inspiration, I'm taking that note down. I have Google Drive on my phone. I can take those notes down. So that's part of it. Yeah. But I think you mean the actual, like, sit down and write about it and actually collect things together. And for that, I do like to try to do it as early as I can, because if it sits on your mind, then it's going to change. I might a week ahead of time think, I'm trying to think if I have a good example of this. I did have an example of mine of there was a session where I was planning a chase scene, and as I'm thinking about it throughout the week, I was going, you know what? Chase scenes are always tough to do in D&D.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it, the more I analyzed it, and the more I thought about other ideas, the more I thought, oh no, it'll be better if they're the ones doing a sneaky espionage investigation scene. And I wouldn't have gotten that kind of thematic approach and changed it had I not started prepping ahead of time. And by prep, I really just mean my notes might have been, what's the theme of this session? Then that might be all I write.
Totally.
And then it'll be a chase scene. And that might be all I write. And then what are the characters going to learn, like I said? And then how is that going to happen? And give yourself the time to think about how you want to approach it. You've probably played a lot of games, you've watched a lot of movies. Pull on that and think of how you might want to form and format your session. So yeah, when you ask how far ahead do I plan, it's going to be far. For me, it's far ahead.
Like needs to be far ahead.
That's not to say I haven't completely scrapped my notes the night before, because a player might say, "Oh, I can't make the session."
Exactly.
Like, all that player's exposition now can't come up.
That is the killer. I 100% agree. And I think there's also something to be said for whenever you write something, especially whenever you have some time, like and forgive me, I'm just petting my dog. He just rolled back in.
Yeah.
With the dog park. Hey, baby. It is, you give your own brain the ability to take a beat from it. Exactly, and return to it, right? Because whenever you've written something, whenever you come back 20 minutes later to be critical of it or to examine it, it's really, really hard to do. Like there's just truly something, I mean, that's why people tape themselves, or that's why you'll record like a lyric or something like that and come back to it and see how it hits you. And I found that very true with D&D, where, sometimes I'll just write down the idea, and if I'm not feeling the specifics, I don't understand how it's going to work yet, I'll just leave it as the general idea. Bandit King is obsessed with copper. And then whenever I'm able to come back and really crack it open, or as is oftentimes I'm like in the middle of the grocery store, I'm like, he lost his family down a copper shaft. Yeah. You know what I mean, right? You know what I'm saying?
I've had moments like that too.
Then you can come back and resolve that. But it's just like you said, you follow the inspiration. Okay, well, I have some more questions I need to get to, but I need to roll through some of this as well. But I appreciate you asking that, Jeef, because that's something that I think new DMs can sometimes get caught up in, is like the night before, the same day, just really burning themselves out with that kind of test anxiety, where they're trying to get themselves like fully prepared. And as Mim alluded to earlier, it's an imperfect medium. And so you need to be really prepared for that. Thank you for that game in there. He, him is fine. Appreciate that. Thank you for that. Root also said they would amend that mechanic side should be no longer than the session itself. The creative side can take as long as you need. Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair.
That's a better way to put it. And that's definitely how we're moving into it. If you're on session 10, 12, much less session 40, is, what does that look like? Getting yourself week to week efficiently prepared to run a game. And those are great tips. I appreciate that. No, are you kidding me? I want battle rap bandit motivations right now. Yeah, exactly. Agreed. Well, you should have them. Matt Pearl says Mim's nudging of tying absolutely everything to what and who is present in the session is seriously high-tier DMing for
thank
real.
you.
That's amazing. Mapro, I didn't know you had the absolute pleasure of being a player in one of Mim's campaigns.
No, I think they're just being complimentary.
Oh, got you. Okay, well, yeah, then I can, agree. That was not lost on me either. But throughout this whole process, and I've also seen some of his game sessions, it really, man, it just makes me want to play. It makes me want to like beg you to bring me in as a villain and have your party kill me. You know what I mean? But
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, but we can sort that out off screen. And then Map was also saying, because yes, okay, sure, the Bandit King is there, but why would the players be interested? Critical, right? You're not only needing to motivate the Bandit King, and I feel like Mim, you did a much better job of not only saying that, touching on it, but then justifying it, right? It's one thing to have this crazy backstory with a villain that lost his thing and blah, 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 blah. If your players don't care, then you don't get to care because your party isn't going to be there. Exactly.
Like, okay, interesting, bye.
Yeah. And then Mapro goes on, and the way of knowing that is knowing who's playing in your session completely. Tailoring your DM work is half the labor. Agreed. If you missed it, that'll be on the VOD, but more likely on the YouTube upload. But agreed, that was touched on in the first half hour and is critical. Whenever you're first sitting down, session 0, especially if you've never DM'd or never DM'd with certain party members, understanding their preference, what draws them to the table, is going to be critical in just making it fun for everybody, which is the point.
Yeah.
That's so great. Gaming there said, okay, they gave me some ideas. I'm running Lost Mines, love it, and want to make the Black Spider much more significant. So I've been having them get more involved in the storyline. Amazing. So Lost Mines of Fendelver, I have not played it. I'm peripherally aware of it. Is the Black Spider a humanoid figure? Is that a nickname for a villain, or is it an actual arachnid?
They are a drow.
They're a drow, copy. Cool. Well, I just ran a one-shot on Monday with a drow. Interesting. I'll tell you what. I have a handful more questions, and then we absolutely must, I repeat, must move through the rapid fire. Okay?
Ooh, rapid fire. Okay.
Yes, dude. Dramatic sound effect. Cue. The rapid fire, of course, is where we go into a binary series of, kind of either or style questions. But I think we do have time because I'm seeing the stream right now, and I think we're good. So, are you familiar with that campaign, Mim?
Lost Mines? Oh, yes.
Cool. So, I mean, let's just take a quick 5, please. Yeah. Like, did you anecdotally, do you remember what you did with Black Spider?
Yeah. So, Lost Mines found out. If you're not familiar with it, this is a campaign that comes with the starter kit, and I believe now it's free on D&D Beyond, I believe. And it is a fantastic module to just start off with and try the game with. It is kind of spoilery, but that's if you take the book by canon to know that an eventual antagonist is the Black Spider. But if you're familiar with the book already, I will say they don't write enough. And I think sometimes it's on purpose.
Yeah, I think Gaming is feeling that.
To say, why are they doing this? And I'd say that is kind of a good thing in disguise, unfortunately, because it does let you change and add what that motivation is. I think so. I'd like to think that's why they did it. I'm not really sure. But what I've done, is I've taken it, I've run that campaign many, many times, to the point where one game I changed them into a doppelganger because it felt so cool and fitting for one party. And that's what you can do. Change that Black Spider and change his character in the module to whatever will fit as an antagonist to your players, and find a motivation that they have or interest that they have. Any morsel of story, even if improvised in the moment, will be a perfect way to work into that Black Spider's motivation of why they're looking for this hidden forge and this mine. It could be any sort of reason, like they just want to learn about their history. They want power. That's a very simple and go-to one. They just want to be controlling. But I would directly look at the players, what they want, and someone opposes them. That's the Black Spider. Have the opposition of desire be from them.
That's rad. My gut reaction is to simply say, do that, Game and Air. As I'm not familiar with it. I am such a sucker for sort of like the Silver Marches 3E adventure guide. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Man, I will send it to you. It is amazing. Mapro, you and I rapped about this. It is an amazing resource, but it was one of the first kind of like where I'd been DMing for a while, but then I read this book from an older, edition that I was familiar with, but seeing the care and how the book wasn't as much XYZ battle map, it was 80% just lore and kind of locations and like battles that had happened and how that affected people. And let's go. And I say that because, well, I'm just a sucker for like so much of the old kind of history of like the Drow being banished, being driven into the Underdark, sort of the threat of the Nine Hells. For me, something that is both like truthful but like really motivating for any Drow, and I'm really just thinking of the handful that are in my campaigns, is the fact that like between the surface and the Nine Hells is the Underdark. And that like they were banished here, yes, but there was also a threat from below, from that which lurks. So the idea of there being a motivator, something that the Black Spider is afraid of, like that to me is sort of inherently compelling. But I'm sure you got it. So good luck with that. Let us know how that shakes out. When do you guys play? Like once a week, once a month? Like let us know what's going down. Root says it was free for 2 weeks. Root,
that's so sad.
I wish I'd known that. Damn. Well, if only time travel existed.
Yeah.
Or time stop. Mapro, yeah, I want to know what some other kind of 2E and 3E era Pool of Radiance, Attack on Myth Draenor, same vibe. I'm screenshotting that from the chat. Great to know. Sick. Thanks, appreciate the advice. We're playing once a week right now. Let's go,
Myth
Game
Draenor, Mapro.
Are you familiar with that?
Oh, Myth Draenor, that's going back. That's the starting point of Faerun. So that's amazing.
Is it for real? I need to crack into that. I have a guy at my table that played Advanced 2E, but I have not really dove into anything.
Yeah, I don't know, if you look at the Forgotten Realms map, in the middle there's Cormyr and
wait, let me pull it up.
Woods.
Wait, hang on. I'm tempted to pull it up, but I didn't preset.
It'll be hard to find.
I know. Like, okay.
But for the time, it was the starting point in the book series. So
interesting. All right. Well, we'll wrap about that. Oh my gosh, Root. I was just thinking after those NASA photos came out, like I need to get in on Spelljammer.
Right.
For everyone out there, I mean, Game in Air as well. Mapro, and Root knows his stuff. He's saying right now the first campaign of Spelljammer is free. I'm gonna get on that. But let's keep going, because I have a couple. Like, you've been dropping some bombs on us, man. I deeply appreciate that. It is so valuable, man, especially given, Mim, that you've played different systems, and I'm sure have played with enough, like we talked about, types of players that having to sort of understand that, to learn that as a skill, can be as simple as being like, hey, like, how do you feel about it? Is combat fun? Do you like mysteries? Do you want to like be solving them? You can be that blatant, I think, and then take the time to digest it and make it more intricate and delicate. But that's amazing. So I feel like you've given us so many practical brass tacks. I'm curious now for more of like a spicy sauce. I tossed out paprika. Okay, my mama abused paprika. Why an Italian woman would abuse paprika? Anyone's guess. But what is sort of a secret sauce, like a spice, so to speak, that you feel like is now kind of a part of your toolbox? I feel like because we've just leaned on you so heavily, I'm sure it's something you might have already touched on. That's fine too. But what's something now that even the Mim of 3 years ago would have benefited from knowing?
Wow, that's a really good question. So a kind of secret sauce. Okay. There is this constant go-to that I've had, and this is one of my biggest points of inspiration, is from the storyteller I encourage everyone to look up, because she does not get enough exposure. Her name is Hannah Harvey, and she's part of the Storytellers, I think, organization in Tennessee. Okay. And something she said is, find something that is personally evocative for you first. Something that will make you feel emotional, something that maybe is even traumatic to you, and find a symbol for that. An example she used was her father and his hands. And she had this whole story talking about her father and how she felt about her father. But it was, if I understand right, it was mostly improvised to exercise the point that if you have a symbol of that emotion, if it's your father, and you can train everything back to his hands, to see how weathered it is from carpet working, to see how clean he keeps his nails because he's afraid of germs and wants to be clean. If there's a line around his wrist where he kept that watch that he so valued that he got from his wife, from your mom, from her mom.
Hey, leave my mom out of this, man. No, I'm totally joking. I'm totally joking.
What it eventually led to is have a thematic anchor,
Yeah.
is what she called. Something that you can always come back to pull inspiration and content from, inspiration from, improvisation from. And so what I've done, and you've heard me do it earlier, is I first establish it. When I say magic versus technology, that's my thematic anchor. So no matter what comes up, if I don't know what to do with it, I can go back to that and say, well, how does that tie into that theme? And then I'll pull from that. And, I've had that happen in my current campaign where players did something where I'm like, I did not expect that at all. And it throws me off completely for a moment, but I say, I prepared for this. I have a thematic anchor. And I'll go to that and say,
yes.
Well, how does that influence this? What do I do with it?
It's almost like a making a collage or something, and someone is handing you all these different cutout shapes, diamonds, stars, squares, polyhedrons, whatever it would be, but you are dipping it in the same palette each time while you're putting it into the canvas of your story. Man,
that is a good point, though, too, that I would tell myself a couple of years ago when I was getting into this and thinking this is the answer to everything, to say it is okay to be outside of that, like you're saying. I'm hearing that and also thinking, allow yourself to decorate around that as well, though, because ultimately you are building a world, and it's not all going to tie into that theme. So
very important note, man. Especially as you start to gain momentum homebrewing. Okay, cool. Like occasionally, if it's all sweet, it needs to be sour, and if it's all fatty, it needs to be lean. Like there needs to be tempo changes and tone changes to just even keep yourself interested. That's really, and I love how you describe that, Mim. Clearly theme is so important to you, but the way that you're breaking it down, the way you're creating imagery, you're personalizing it, right? That is honestly like Stanislavski acting through and through. is truly beat by beat substitution. And that's something that personally is always very evocative in terms of finding my own linchpins to also connect organically in the realm of acting with a performance or a character. But with D&D, if it's a theme, for me it's often an NPC. Like if I can think about one little defining moment, or one embarrassing incident that this NPC has never forgotten, it'll never come up, but I have a great angle on how this person thinks, how they react to the world around them. To add to that, if I could, please.
When you're talking about having an embarrassing moment, I would say if you can draw from an embarrassing moment of your own too, in real life, in your own experience,
I have
channel
plenty,
that through your character. Yeah, right. We all do, right? If you can channel that through your character, it will be so much more authentic and genuine because it's now personal to you too.
Got you. No, that's true. And you know what? Again, this is just, ping pong to the sky, but they talk about that in improv a lot too. Like UCB just pounds that in terms of, I'm not picking up this coffee cup. Like I'm picking up this mug right here that has this tiny little chip on it from whenever I forgot to put it on the ledge. It rolled off, but I caught it with my foot, right? So it didn't completely break.
Nice.
And in finding ways to see it, like this isn't made of some weird material. This is pewter. It's beautiful. Part of it is this way, part of it's that way. There's a patina to it as well. Like the more you are understanding what you are drawing from to create, way more texture, color, passion, connectivity, right? Man, you got me going on that in a big way, Mim. Very
nice,
well
good.
put. That's a deep toolbox, my boy. Playing the bugle. Okay, so that's a great toolbox. I hope everyone learned from that. That is mind-blowing to me. I feel like I've asked everyone this, and I have not framed it well. So I'm going to try to do it this time.
see.
Do you ever, in between sessions, roll, as in a d20, to determine the way events break or success or failure for NPCs? Cool.
Definitely.
And like, can you sort of dive into that for us? Like maybe give an example or...
I can give you a beautiful example
Mim,
I have.
I'm so sorry. Can you actually just buy me about 90 seconds? I need to take my dog outside.
Go for it.
He's losing his mind. I'm so sorry. Just 1 second. I'm so sorry to do this, guys. Literally 90
I'll
seconds.
re-chat. No worries. Silver freaking Marshes at Mapro. It's up there for me with the 2D ride. Yeah, so you've been playing Mapro for a while, haven't you? And nice to meet you, by the way. I'm kind of curious how often you DM versus PC as well. And thanks, appreciate the advice. We're playing once a week right now, Game on Air. Yeah, I was thinking about what you were saying earlier when you're planning the Black Spider and Lost Mines of Foundelver. There are other ways, too, to give the Black Spider a story and motivation, like leaning into how there's this conflict with dwarves and the Rock Seekers. And you can lean into that to say, he has because it doesn't always have to tie to the player if you're not sure what to do, because I know I was advising earlier to look at the player's needs. Sometimes they don't even know what they want. And so you have to give them an environment to play off of to learn what their needs are. So something you can do is learn into the other NPCs and say, maybe that Black Spider hates the Rock Seekers and dwarves and really just wants to exact revenge on them. Because sometimes a two-dimensional character is perfectly fine. Right now, the first campaign of Spelljammer's free. I know. I love the adverts they have. Did you guys see that they photoshopped, I think, Boo onto the pictures that they got? Should I leave for this? Nah, Jeep, it's all good. Nothing will be too secret here. It's all good. Mapro 28 years. Yeah, I share with you on that. I've been playing for about the same time, actually. At Mapro, I think we're probably about the same age. I'll use the break to thank you guys for the chat.
I'm back,
just
dude.
wrote a few pages. Welcome back. I'm
so
just reading
sorry.
chat.
Good, man. What did I miss? What did I miss on this?
I'm on Game on Air saying I'll use a break to thank you guys for the chat. I just wrote a few pages of motivation for the Black Spider. Yes!
Dude,
nice.
Let's
That's
go.
So cool.
I'm grateful I got back for that. And thank you for just like handling that like a pro, man. I appreciate that. Nothing more on brand for me than inviting someone to a party and then leaving to pick up the pizza.
No, it's all good.
No, and Game in Air, thanks for sharing that too, man. That's rad. Like, that's what it's all about.
It's just that Jeeps question, if you want.
Yes, please. Yeah, I mean, that's a great one. He was saying, curious about your thoughts about railroading. Do you think it's necessary? And if so, how much is acceptable? And that's a great one. I'm curious about that as well. I'm actually going to add that to the between two DMs template.
Yes. If I could add to that, I made this graphic that I like to share to represent that, a kind of Venn diagram where you have railroading, and in opposite to railroading, you have an ocean. And if they could overlap, you have that ideal sandbox. I really wanted to convey with that image that railroading does have its good places. Because if you do everything you can to avoid railroading, you end up in an ocean. And then players will just drown, not knowing where to go because they have no guideposts and no land, right?
The death of free choice.
Overlap, exactly. So if you lay down some mentor characters, if you lay down some story emphasis, and let the players know some points of interest. Something I like to do is decorate a city with NPCs and give each of them maybe one line of a thematic anchor, like I said before, and then let the players go from there. If you have a hook for your campaign, put that in your city as well. We have that guy in the copper, that bandit.
Yeah.
You put in this city, you say everyone is talking about how there's no copper in this city, and anytime copper comes up, people are saying, I don't want your copper, keep that away from me.
Yeah,
that's the
dangerous.
Story hook now.
That's funny.
But someone might say
great.
That's railroading.
Dude, that's great. What if, what if you also see it reflected in prices? Like things are like either like sold like only in bulk because it has to be like a silver now. It can't be 5 coppers. You know what I mean? Or just little things like that. They can't give you change. Something like that. I love that.
That's a key. That's a key to your story. And some people would interpret that and argue, well, that's railroading because now all you're telling me about is this copper. But I think it's effective railroading because you're evoking the story going on here, and it's still the player's agency to do something about it.
1000%.
It's still in the player's choice to ask, well, why is that happening? Because it's still their option to also say, I don't care about that. I'm going to go look at that mage tower over there and see what's going on at that mage tower. And that's where your thematic anchors might come in handy to say, oh, I only had one line for this wizard, but the players are going there now, so let's see what happens.
That is very real. Great question, Chief, and great answer. And I mean, it's for me, it only becomes railroading whenever they say, no, I don't really, I'm not taking the hook on that. I'm heading towards the wizard, and they get caught up in a blizzard. And actually, you were walking the way I wanted you to go. You know what I mean? Like, because what you're talking about is setting up different hooks and seeing who takes the bait and then reeling them along. I like that.
Right, I forget how bad it can be. You're right.
but it is a Venn diagram, man, because you can't have it be, oh my gosh, yeah, you guys wake up.
What do you do?
You know what I mean? Like, I think of it. I think of it almost like it's not a railroad; it's a railroad system. You know, there are many stations, there are many directions, but everything either ends up in L.A. or New York. You know, so it's sort of like, you know, just treating it in the way of being. Cool, you don't want to get on that train. No worries. Go live your life. Things are going to happen. I've accounted for that. But you are going to come into a different train station that is leaving and heading the same direction. So then it becomes about me as a DM, like figuring out, do they not care about this storyline, this theme? Like that's a big problem, obviously, if that's the answer. Or do they just not care about this like one situation and the lady that lost her cat?
Right.
You know what I mean? But like if cats keep going missing, right? Like one thing that's been really fun for me, like we talk about themes, and I'm really just, again, like inspired by your response, so forgive me while I indulge myself. But please. Like one of the big themes in my kind of main homebrew campaign has been this wizard that essentially can affect time, has the ability through a plane shift spell and certain physical artifacts that are like old kind of religious sites, create these opportunities seasonally, a few times a year, where you can step through time.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to represent the effect of that as being shown by occasionally, because he's going back trying to change the outcome of a war, stop certain people from being killed, and by sort of pulling that thread, certain people are alive now, certain people are dying now, and things are just changing. But the through line of books being different, of the endings being different, of histories now being occasionally like unwritten if the author wasn't there to finish them, and not massively, but just occasionally. And now it's happened for the third time, and they've just put it together in terms of, oh shit, is this related to that Pavo, that god of time shit that he's doing? And for me, it felt rewarding because it was like, I was like, okay, snap, like they didn't really care. They didn't go to the Neverwinter Library and investigate. Okay, no problem. You know, there was a bard later that like was getting his songs right and his histories wrong, and it kind of bumped some people. But it sometimes is like the rule of threes, where maybe they didn't take the hook because like they're really excited by your description of the lake, and now they feel like they have to go swim in it and fish. You know what I mean? And so there's a give and take to it. Like sometimes railroading is simply they got to the train station late and missed the train. Like, don't beat yourself up. Like, there can be other devices that move that along. That's really, really good.
I like your idea of using rule of three as a good mechanic too, because sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, were they just not interested in that story hook? And yeah, I will try maybe 2 more hooks. And if they decline it each time, especially after 3, I think that's a good idea. Say, okay, I should just reconsider the story I have in it, because by now they've done 3 choices.
Yeah.
What were the commonalities in those choices? Draw from that, and maybe you can still leverage from your already existing prep to hook into those choices they've made and just improvise and roll with it. I think that's in conflict resolution called log rolling, you know, just roll with it rather than try and push up against it.
No, and yet another piece of D&D that transitions into the real world. Occasionally got a log roll, you know what I mean? Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, let me move through some of these, and then again, I do have some more kind of like color flavor specific questions similar to that. I really appreciate the railroad question, Jeef. That was excellent, and I have added it to the template. That's a very good one. Mapro was saying, I've been in a remote location for a while, so almost always a DM. However, even when I was in a city and had broader access to players, I was still more of a DM because they apparently preferred my world. That's dope, man. Like, do you miss playing though? Is that something you feel? Because I love DMing, but man, it had been about a year before I'd been able to play, and we just started Curse of Strahd, and I'm a player in that campaign, and I just missed it so much. So I hope you're not like jonesing. That sometimes can be tough, especially when you're still DMing. You're like, oh. Root was also saying, I'm still trying to read Phandelver. It's so boring reading adventure books for me. Why do you think that is, Root? Do you think it's because of just your active imagination, your experience, or do you think it's a quality thing? Like, has there been an adventure book that you really enjoyed? Curious. I think
they don't really read like books, do they? They are very different. They're they're not really meant to tell most of the time a very in-depth story because they're written with holes for you to fill. I wonder if that's what he means.
Interesting. And Mim, you put it in a way that, at least for me in my exposure, like I've read the DM guide, and in Dragon of Icespire Peak, they touch on it a little bit, but I wish there was more, like in the actual adventure book, to say, this is the Black Spider, this is where he is, he's robbing for people. DM note, like you might want to substitute a motivation from your own campaign or your character's backstory, because sometimes it isn't always clear, and when you're a new DM, like you touched on earlier, you're hesitant to, you feel like, break the story, when they don't realize it's actually there to be broken. Well,
yeah, that's a good point. It's not always like that, but because Candlekeep Mysteries actually does a really good job of giving you motivation for characters.
Interesting.
But some of the earlier modules, especially Word of the Dragon Queen, it is missing things, but they were still learning the system themselves. So it is. I think the lesson to take away from a lot of that is to be patient and forgiving with yourself and others, even the game designers, and be confident knowing that you can still ultimately take it to the table and have fun making up a story. Because like what I think Mapro was saying is people are going to end up liking your story more than anything because you are with them, and therefore they are also part of it.
Yes. That's well put. Definitely a part of it. Mapro was mentioning that Brendan Lee Mulligan was recently in that kind of triage roundtable, and you're absolutely right. Someone sent me a clip of that about how it's like water, right, running down a hill.
Irrigation.
Yes, and that's totally it. And he also said this before that kind of clip, which is exactly how I feel. Which I, as a player, railroad me, daddy. Like, I mean, I mean, truly. Like, I mean, I don't want to be like driven to some place I don't want to go. But I want to be a character in a novel. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be there immersed. I want it to feel like if I walked out the door, things would still be happening inside this place. And that's how I try to run my NPCs, where it's like, cool, you don't want to interfere with this guy? He's taking over this area of the town. So
he's doing what he wants.
Yeah, cool. That's amazing. Yeah, I was wondering if you were familiar with that. And Mapro, thank you for dropping that. Mapro, we're going to be 42, playing since he was 94? Let's go.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Respect to that. Got some legends. Learning from most of the DMs, GMs who started in the 70s. Good times. Wow. Yeah, you and I can recall the long days of yore for sure. I mean, I mean, I feel like that would be its own almost like segment or its own like, episode,
I was thinking
right?
There's a lot
like,
to say there.
Truly.
Yeah.
In a friend of mine, I don't know if you guys know Alexandria RPG, but he does a great job. He honestly runs a great stream of bringing up like indie platforms. I'm just gonna go ahead and shout him out. But he does the same thing where he will go through old adventure guides, and it is really pretty rad. I mean, where it's sort of like, he's doing things and he's kind of I don't know. He just sort of raises he kind of platforms things that I would not have been aware of otherwise. So hopefully we'll
Guncaster. They essentially carve magic into bullets.
Okay. So bullets are missile type weapons. So would they be magic missiles?
Got him. He's full of jokes like that, quips. As you can tell, he had fully stunned his guest. That's what we're going for, the stunner. But Matt Pro, I mentioned that because I think you guys might rap. Jeef was saying, I think the biggest issue with the adventure books is that they aren't really an adventure. Totally. They are bones of a skeleton, yep, and they expect you as the DM to fill out the organs and muscles and skin and everything. Got it. Quality of writing is also a bit subpar. Yo, facts. Jeef, knowledge bomb, dropped, received.
Some better than others, yeah.
100%. And I think that just goes to show, it's important for a new DM to know that nothing is a part of your campaign, even what's in the adventure book, until you bring it into your session, right?
Yep.
And you establish it. So, I mean, that can give you great freedom. You, of course, don't want to just be like freestyling every session. You want to be consistent with your lore. That's what makes it fun and meaningful and immersive. But, yeah, man. I mean, like, there's been times this guy that was supposed to be like a main lieutenant, I had to just improvise his name. So now this guy, his name is Thomas, and like, and it's like a significant NPC that, not that there's anything wrong with the name Thomas, but it is more of like a high fantasy campaign that we're running.
Yeah.
I have turned it into like Tomas, but it was just a moment where I was like, do I want to stop the flow of the game to flip through pages to get the NPC's name right? Or do I understand that I have the power to name him right now, track it, and then just roll with it? And that freedom can make things a lot easier. And whatever, you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Like, the big guys make mistakes. It's part of the learning process.
It is. You don't learn otherwise. That's what mistakes are.
Yeah, 100%. I appreciate you asking, Gaming Air. I'm not streaming my campaign of Dragon of Icespire Peak. On Monday and next Monday, I will be streaming what is essentially a one-on-one session with an NPC from that campaign. They're playing Sierra, which is a drow spy from the Silver Marches adventure book. But this person I brought in as a reveal. They're a fabulous actor, voice actor, and they basically came in and played in our session, revealed themselves, stole something, barely escaped, and now he and I are running one-on-ones to see what is happening with the drow militia and the contingent of the Underdark. So I appreciate that. I'll definitely let you know. And I just kind of want to get through some of this chat before we get too buried in it. But Root was saying that it's written like a nonfiction book, which is really hard for me to read. Is that how you feel about it, Mim? Like, do you? I feel like you are able to take the adventure books and use them more. Like, I mean,
I can see what Ruta Beers means, saying that it feels like a non-fiction book, because it is like half lore and instruction or mechanics and half story. So it does. I don't think anyone's gonna. I think you'd be hard pressed to argue that D&D modules are storybooks. They're a mix of a manual and a story, and there's some sort of weird hybrid of that, and there's a whole discussion maybe to be had just about how to design modules. But yeah, it's good maybe sometimes that there's a variety of them out there with different people working on them, so you can find one and the style that they have and follow that writer, and go to DM's Guild too and look for people on there and try that out too, because someone's going to match your style, and that's where I would stick to, whether it be really just adopting them almost entirely, or if their assets and the way that they prepare things matches your style that you can pull from and use that in your own homebrew. One of those will work. Yes. I find that I'm able to pull from Candlekeep and Strixhaven very well, but I also have pulled a lot from Matthew Colville, who I'm assuming most people will know because he's pretty popular nowadays as being someone who's done Strongholds and Followers. But I've loved the way he has talked about older modules and how to adopt them into your own 5th edition gameplay. I draw from that a lot too, and I work with his style a lot in that way. I disagree with him still on some things, but that's par for the course of human nature. And that's where I'll go to as well. So
that's right.
I think that's how I take from that.
Because it is, it is super helpful because it's saving you time, right? You're picking from lore, you're picking from maps, from established, important NPCs, and it just, I don't know. I like doing that. Like, if they're going to a new city, I don't want to build the whole city. I want to build 5 to 15 elements of it. You know what I mean? I would much prefer for the lore, for like the tinker shop, to have some of that built out, because then you can save your energy as a DM for more colorful kind of choices.
I wanted to add to that too,
please.
that if someone's reading that book and they go, well, I don't know how to make the decision of when to change something from the module, I would say that is your cue to ask your players a question about it. When you find yourself getting stuck in the module and saying, I don't know what to do with this part, come up with a question about it that you can throw at your player. And now your question might be, what kind of question do I throw at them about it? It would just be, what would your character think or feel about where you're stuck at? And it could be a heist, for Waterdeep heist. How do they feel about dragons? How do they feel about this city that does these things, or giants? Draw inspiration from your players. They will love to help you with that prep. Every player I ever ask a question about when I get stuck, they will give you, more often than not, plenty to work with.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so true. Communication is key and is a salve for many ointments, or for many aches. God, that's so true. Okay, Matt Bro, sounds like you are selectively missing some games. Yeah. Got you. You only want the high-end games. I get that. And I'm glad to hear you're a voice guy. I love voice guys. Gotta have those RP maestros just sort of rolling through, punching things up. Yeah, Root says like a school textbook to be more accurate. Totally. And that's why I think, Mim, you really just hit the nail on the head, because there is a variety, right? Like, I'm not familiar with Strixhaven. Sounds like it is quite rich, but there is going to be a variety to how much you can get out of it, and a lot of it, of course, is going to be your preference. But that's good to know, Root. Sounds like you have been able to kind of figure out a system that is, helpful for you in that sense. So that's super valuable. Mapro, thank you so much. Thank you for the row. I need that clip. I desperately need that clip. Thank you. Chief was saying, I've been trying to do that with Mastika for reasons. It's kind of hard to dig through old content, though, for lore. Gotcha. Yeah, unless you're going to make it like really regional specific or reskin it. If you guys aren't familiar with Silver Marches, like in a typical kind of Faerun, like Deseren Valley, man, it is mwah. Like, anyone that tuned in, and this is massive spoilers, Matt Trammell, if you're listening, get out, dog. Matt, if you're here, get out. But the whole summoning that was taking place in the beginning of that one shot on Monday, it's actually going to be like a 2-3 shot, as always. And the same thing that was referenced at the end of it is this guy Telkun, that is this wizard in a tower that has no explanation other than he's half fiend, half drow. And dude, it has this stasis sphere. It's a whole encounter from the Silver Marches thing, and it is so unforgiving. Like, 30 spells. It's death. and I'm really, like, I'm planning on treating that. Like, there are the symbol spell is on the exterior of the tower, which is straight up, still the 30 rules. And I'm going to have my party, if and when they go there, they're going to be walking into a 3rd edition dungeon, straight up. And that'd so cool. like that for me has been fun, where I'm like, cool, I'm running my own campaign. This one aspect of it is clearly lift and dropped from Silver Marches. And I'm fine saying that, because that's what D&D is all about, is like taking these bits, making them work within the mechanics, and then having fun with it. That's cool with Mustika. I'm going to go back and add that to the list. Dwarven General Kick Thedoran. Is that a adventure book, Root? Like, I'm curious about that. That's why I have such a much.
That name.
Yeah, are you familiar? Dwarven General Kick Thedoran. I'm going to screenshot that as well. Give it a look-see. Jeef was saying, that is why I have such a hard time with campaign settings that are pre-established lore. You get stuck between trying to make your own thing and also sticking with what the writers have already created. For sure. I mean, I'm not going to speak for you. What I've somewhat heard from you, Mim, and what's definitely true of me is, like, trust your gut on that, right? I mean, if you have a better idea, go for it. It sometimes can feel hard. Just make sure that you are tracking it, and that you have, a PDF or a cheat sheet that is your Bible, your canon. You know what I mean? That never changes. But yeah, man, I'm really happy, Mim, that you've dropped Strix, just because I've heard people talk about it, and I have never really dove into it. Okay, I do have some serious questions.
Oh, I'm
some
ready.
Dangerous questions.
Dangerous, so even better.
I'm not trying to put this on you, Mim. All right, I would never put this on you, dog. I'm not putting it on you, okay?
But it's spicy. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. But has your environment ever killed a player?
Oh, the environment.
I mean, by that I mean you.
Yes.
Has a player ever died in your campaign?
Have I had players die in my campaign? Definitely. Has it been a result of the environment itself? If that's what you mean, yes. Which one are you interested in?
What happened? I'm interested in all, dude. I want every
All
death.
of them?
What is your
Okay.
body count? What's going on, Mim?
Oh man. Okay. Player death is.
Jeef is like me.
I haven't killed Jeep. Most of the time, it's players killing themselves in some way.
Sure.
By their own decisions, and I think ideally, that's the best case scenario when you're talking about player death, is that they know that it was a result of their choices.
Yes.
So some examples I have two in particular. One is the group of players are in a mind flayer dungeon that they're investigating, but not intending to attack them. They know that there are plenty here, and that they want to just get in to grab something and get out. So when I make it very clear that through this thin membrane that is sticky and moving through the wall, that's acting as a one-way mirror, and on the other side the players can see this big group of mind flayers floating around and exchanging books with one another, and that it's clear they're searching for something, and one of the players says, I walk through that membrane and attack them.
No.
I have to say,
No.
I have to first wonder, are they aware of what's going on? And I might do a check with them.
Yeah, what happened? Like, I just say that I'm gonna walk through the membrane. I'm gonna roll attack on him.
Yeah, you're aware there's a whole group of mind flayers there, and you did see them, right? They are looking for you right now. You're aware of that, right?
Does this player know what a mind flayer is? That's so tough.
Yeah,
that's
but what they did is they went through, and I'm like, okay, and they said I attacked them, and I'm like, okay, so I went through the motions, and I said roll your initiative, and
oh my god, man, that's so generous. I would do the same thing. I love doing it. All right, let's run it.
Yeah. Well, that's what ended up happening, and I will say though that when you do get player character deaths happen, take your time with it, and really give an emphasis on the narration, because sometimes players are perfectly fine with their character dying, but they want it to be fun. So I took my time saying how the mind flayer gripped onto its head, they had flashbacks and memories of their family, and they really thought about calling out to one of them, but as they try and call out, abyss takes them, and then there's nothingness. Something like that. And the other example I have, which is entirely player choice, is that you're aware of Neverwinter, and that there's a river running through the middle of this town. And I had one of the players decide to teleport into a tree that they could see deep within the river. This is a weird circumstance, but they were trying to get away from something.
Dude, wait, quick pause. That is such a weird circumstance. And it's a weird circumstance. One that is like very D&D, yes, but in my humble opinion, indicative of Mim's level as a DM. My boy is out here having people dive into the depths of the Neverwinter River. That is hilarious. So what happened?
But they were aware that there was plant life near the bottom, so like, I'm gonna land stride into that plant life. I'm like, okay, you get away from the bad guys that were up above, because they were a druid, they knew of this, but they also knew that they were out of wild shape uses and spell slots, and now they're just swimming at the bottom of the ocean and they have nowhere to go. And I say, what do you do? How long can you breathe underwater? And we did the math, and we're like, you're so many 100 feet down, you're not gonna make it to the top. And they're like, I have no options. I'm just drowning. And and there was this moment where there was nothing they could do. They put themselves in this scenario where they're just drowning, and they drowned. I was like, I didn't even do it. I was like, the player made themselves drown.
That's really tough.
I think it's because players forget, just like maybe a person does with safety equipment, that you can endanger yourself just by not thinking, or not being able to have the forethought of, I'm going to teleport 500 feet into the water. Oh no, I'm out of spell slots.
Yes.
Oh, I'm screwed.
Yes. Dude, like the first character I ever played was a druid, and I really enjoyed when you were doing your live stream of kind of a how to build a druid. I don't know, it was like a month ago. But I always try to keep a wild shape in my back pocket.
Yeah,
and it's hard at higher levels. As I was a moon druid, because you can burn 2 and shift into an elemental, which is sick. But then you burn 2.
Yep.
Oh man, Mim, that's so good. I mean, I've come. There's been really, really close. I have had one player gentle reposed and revivified.
Okay.
My players are in a dicey spot right now. But the closest was in they were going through the Evermoors, and this is an area where I was really falling in love with Silver Marches, like the encounter table, the whole world, and it was fitting within my world too. It was beautiful, and I had them roll for the random encounter, but I was going to make it thematic. It was like a limited random encounter that I had curated, right? Which, in my opinion, is like how you should do a random encounter. Don't leave it to the internet. Like, take the module, fit it to your campaign, and then roll on that. But they were faced with a boulet. Excuse me, with a Bahir. And,
That's amazing creature.
Yeah, it really, really is. I mean, from the immunity right to electricity, but to the fact that they can swallow. I mean, there was so much about them, and they were sort of lurking in this bog. And the way it played out, a person was knocked unconscious and then swallowed, thus absorbing some bludgeoning damage. And so it was clear, like, I described it like as this ancient beast, like having risen, having drawn in combat, its belly full, its hunger nearly satiated, flees to its den and began to dash, right? And so it then began this like race against time to basically cut it off. And they were 5th level, but it was so hairy, man. And that's like the beautiful thing about D&D sometimes is if your players don't feel like the stakes are real, everyone at the table is being cheated. So that's interesting. Like, you strike me as a very level-headed dude. I'm surprised to hear that many people have died. I think it speaks to your players. Jeeve,
I will say, though, what I'll do is I'll also build up players in a sense of safety for a long time, too, to get them attached to the world and the setting and other NPCs so that when deaths do happen, they're also way more impactful. If you just kill your players, if they've only played the character one session and all they have for backstory is their name, they don't care.
Yeah.
If you've played 20 sessions with one character, and each session they're asking about a particular NPC, and then one session it's the Bahir swallows your best friend who you've been following all these years. What do? And they say, I dash and I chase after them, and it's like they outrun you.
Yeah.
And eventually you can see that they spit out your friend and they're all fried out. That death will have more impact because of that time investment. So it isn't just getting a body count. Sometimes I know as DMs we can feel like we need the tension to be there, but also marinate your characters and your players and let them sit in that safety so that when that death comes, it'll hurt them more. Because, man, one of my first tearjerkers I got is when I said, when another player death I had is they're fighting Zugtmoy, who was like that demon lord of poison.
I'm not familiar with it.
This is very high level D&D. I meant like literally high level. When I said that the player told me I want this character to die, so I said okay.
Oh wow, okay.
We're level 14, so the players have been playing with him a long time, and this demon person, which actually I did tell you earlier about the diseased forest. So this is them fighting that character, and they say, as Zugtmoy is dying, I grab the roots and I start telling the players how they start taking the place of this demon that has been rooted into the forest. And I say, at the last moment, all you can see as they're getting wrapped up by the roots and leaves and foliage of this forest, you can just see their eyes and this little whisper of goodbye. And when I voice that in the moment and I have the music and all that build up, all you hear from the players is that choke up sound of sadness, because not only has this been built up from levels 1 to 14, but also between the players' rapport with each other about this character. So it is also about a big thing about build up to that death.
Yes. Man, that's so intense. Did they want to roll a different character? Like, did they have an idea for a storyline?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. And
Which is not to say that's always meaning to kill the character, but in this case, the story sense made him perfect sense.
Well, and it's not like you just had like a rock fall and crush him, right?
Yeah,
like he died mechanically. I mean, he was he was faced. I'm sure he entered initiative. Like that's man, that's wild. I know as a player that definitely like grounded us big time. I think we were level 4 or 5, and this guy's beast companion got killed.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay.
And it was just like, boom. And none of us knew, not even he at that time, because he hadn't read all the way, if he could bring him back, like what was going to happen. And I don't know. I've just heard, I feel like I sometimes like shudder to think of a DM. I mean, it's just tough because sometimes you have to put on like, you know, your work boots and really wade into the muck. But, yeah, it's meaningful, and you highlighting it is really thoughtful because it can feel uncomfortable. I've never really had it happen, but I feel like it would just be so hard because this person cares about the character, the party cares about the character. But if you are making that a significant, like, fork in the road, you know, then there can be power in there. It can elevate the stakes even higher.
Something you said, though, it reminds me of a different kind of approach to that, though. You're familiar with Save the Cat for story writing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Have you watched the anime Full Metal Alchemist? Are you familiar with that at all?
Dude, it's ringing a bell, but I haven't seen it, no, but I think...
Maybe someone in chat will know, but I'll tell you, when I think Save the Cat, on the opposite, I think of Kill the Hughes, and by that I mean... Very early on in a story, if a character dies, it immediately tells the audience, "Oh, the author is willing to do this. They're willing to kill off." Which sounds. I think that's what you're getting at too. Is it sets that precedent that characters die, and it doesn't matter who they are. I will kill them. Now there's tension there. So I like that too. It's opposite to Save the Cat.
I like that. But wait, why is it Kill the Hugh?
Oh, that was just the name of the character in Full Metal Alchemist.
Got it. Okay, got it. I didn't know if there was like shorthand for like Kill the Humans. Like, okay, cool. I will check out Full Metal Alchemist. That's dope.
That's a big series. So.
Yeah, thank you for putting me onto that.
Game of Thrones does it too. Well,
exactly.
I don't mean to spoil, but I feel like a lot of people learn.
I was about to say that. Even. Definitely into season 1, right? You're like, what kind of show is this?
When they kill off a very main character, and you're like, oh, they're willing to do that?
100%. But that's, I mean, like, that's where it got us in a big way. And there was earlier moments, even in season 1, where you're kind of like, oh, we were just introduced to that guy. What happened?
Yeah.
Like, is that that? Okay. So good. Root says, no, your General Orc David, a good replacement plus good pun. Got you. That's definitely an option of reskinning successfully. Kick the door in. Got you. Is that the example of a death, Root? Did they end up like just getting murdered by a much stronger orc? Because that's not a bad way to go. That's definitely a classic like 3E situation. Jeef says they tried to die recently, fist fighting a giant, but things didn't go my way. Yeah, Mim's over here nodding his head. He knows what happened. I'm a firm believer of the Dark Souls style of DMing. Actions have consequences. Yeah. You need to have that. You know, and I'm going to get through the rest of these comments. And then I do have, like I said, just one more question, then we'll move into the rapid fire. But
nice.
Mim, you know, Dark Souls style DMing, actions having consequences, absolutely the case. And we're talking about player death, so oftentimes that would be, oh no, this guy died, like he has now been affected by it. What is I can think of some others offhand, but I'm more, you know, sometimes it can be nice, right, to do that with things other than death. I mean, in the example of the Copper Bandit, I mean, if you are not doing with that, right, if the player action is not dealing with it, then that's an opportunity to show consequence. Right. I mean, I think, you know, Jeef highlights it and it's something we've touched on, but can you think of some more outside of combat that are ways that, you know, actions have consequences and that can be a way to kind of ground the world even further?
Yes. A lot of time when we think consequences, especially in terms of D&D, I think it evokes a very physical and a very violent kind of consequence, but sometimes the consequence can just be information. And again, you'll hear me allude to revelation, because all that can be a consequence sometimes is people learning something about you that you didn't want them to know, or vice versa. So what's a good example? Let me think. Well, okay, so I did have some players that what they were trying to do is they wanted to get a magical item, so they made this deal with a very unscrupulous character to say, I'll do something for you if you'll make a magic item for me. And because they actually didn't go through this deal properly, that unscrupulous character didn't get this item that they wanted. So instead what they did is they went about that another way. Then they turned into trading with and pulling and manipulating others into following them to go to the antagonist. So now who I was originally designing as this random NPC who's just going to make a magic item, now they have a motivation to go help the antagonist in some way, to go send them supplies, because they didn't get what they wanted from the player, but maybe they can trade and get something from the antagonist. Well, what are they going to trade with them? Well, now the antagonist can learn something about the party through that NPC that they weren't going to originally. I'm talking a lot in code, I think.
No,
but this is a lot of background stuff.
No, that's true. And what's up,
Oh,
Latte?
no.
It's
She's
so
in
good
chat.
to see you. That's so funny. Man, I literally, in my head before the stream, I was like, yo, if Latte and G are here, I need to just like pivot everything to talking about that Minecraft raid, because that was one of the most mind-blowing experiences I've ever had. Like, I've only took Minecraft third person, and to see a bunch of people like I perfectly know playing together a game I didn't know was co-op was very extreme to me. I don't know what it did to me, but I was like,
oh, yeah,
what the
it's
fuck?
an experience. But
yeah.
if you're worried about it, I think she's aware of this consequence I'm talking about.
Yeah, no,
and that's, I think the good thing too is that players ought to know that some of the things they did impacted the world. So like when Latte, and I'll speak openly about it now then too, when she declined this NPC something they wanted, I had to decide as a DM, well, where else would they go? So when you're talking about actions having consequences, it can be something as simple as that, because then it'll be, well, can this NPC do something to the main campaign? Yes, they can do a lot. They can give information and empower the antagonist somehow. And that isn't something physical, but it can turn into it. It can be something like they want to go help and fight the players.
Yeah. That's really well put, Mim. And guys, thank you so much for rolling through. I'm about to slide through this chat. So much love out there. I feel like the examples we talked about earlier where it's like, man, you don't want to railroad, you want to present an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Present a train. Do they board the train? For me, if a hook is presented and it doesn't quite land, or maybe it didn't cause the dominoes I sort of thought had been set up, for me, it's fun to think about, okay, cool, would those dominoes still get tipped? If this woman is coming and trying to have her cat saved, this woman loves this cat. Like, you're saying no? Okay, cool. Like, stick it. I'm going to the next guy, right? And what would that look like? You know, I mean, in the thing of a cat, I think it would be fun to the next day, 2 days later, they're coming back from something and she has the cat and oh, you're sweet. Well, look at the people that didn't have time for you, Flitty. Well, I got him to fuck back. Fuck you. You know, I mean, like it can. I mean, that's a little aggro, but the idea of showing that the world continues to spin outside your party and outside your players, at least for me as a player, is super immersive.
Yeah.
But you do a great job at that, man. Like I've seen some of y'all's play sessions; they're dope.
I like what you said, if I could add to that too. When players ignore quests, sometimes what I'll do is I'll say the next time the players come to, you know, the lodge where the quest board is, there'll be a knight there collecting money, and the players might say, hey, what happened to that quest? And, you know, the person running the lodge will say, oh, this night they finished it. And the knight will come up and, you know, be like, I'm the real hero here. You guys took too long.
Isn't that the
best? And now
best?
the consequence is there's a new hero to compete with. And they're not evil or anything. They're just another force in the world.
I have a guy, his name's Edgeblade the Black. He's basically Christian Bale's Batman. he's not wearing any hockey pants, you know. But he's just like constantly just fucking hard on for justice. And like he is a complete knob. I mean, just like that guy, you know. Yeah. But it's been fun because anytime he finds success, anytime like a third party mentions Edgeblade the Black, it's such an eye roll.
I love that.
From the party. You know what I mean? But it was a character that I thought they would choose to face in better, but because they didn't, he kind of saved the day, and now people respect him. And yeah, it just goes to show, like, if you swing and miss as a DM, that's actually a hit, because now even if the ball falls to the ground and it shatters, what happens then? You know, what is the repercussion of the hook not being answered, etc. Dude, I love that. Okay, let me roll through this because I promise I always am, and I do have one juicy question, and then we have to move into the rapid fire, dude, which is going to be dope.
All right.
So, you were saying your first character was a Circle of Shepherd healer type. Love that. I recently ran one in a combat scenario. They are rad. I mean, extra D8 or 2D8 depending on level. I mean, in an enormous area, they're an amazing support character. Root was saying, quick question for both DMs with 5e's changes for monsters to lack weaknesses. Do you add some of your homebrew creatures? Appreciate that question, Root. I have to be honest with that specifically. I have never added a weakness in that sense. I have added bells and whistles that typically have been positive. But I like the idea of having a weakness, especially if it's something random, like psychic damage, you know, and like the bard's cutting words are all of a sudden really landing. How about you, Mim? Is that something that like you track?
If it's just mechanical, then yeah, I find that a lot of things are immune to fire. So I might switch it around and say, you know, this particular fiend is actually vulnerable to fire.
I like that.
And already that's evoking a very unique kind of monster, right?
Yeah, like why is he that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. I would do that every now and then.
That's
because just doing that is imaginative.
No, you know what? True. And it adds a little bit of texture. Appreciate that question, Root. Jeef was saying, Mim, you need to kill aura off. Oh! It will break the player. That's hilarious as Latte rolls through. That's great. She was like, I just took a great peaceful walk. What the fuck? That's hilarious. Okay, well, again, I did not platform that. I did not co-sign that. What the? But that would be juicy. If that happens, Mim, send me a whisper, okay? I'm gonna be coming through. It will break the player. That is so aggro. I love it. It will probably be the most impactful death at the table. Okay, well, milady Aura, I think you and Ulrich might need to keep some eyes on yon pitchfork, but that is absolutely hilarious. Zugtamoy, demoness of fungus. She wars with Jubilee X. Ooh, is that? Are you guys speaking the same language? Because that just sounds...
That was the demon I was talking about earlier.
Oh my god. Okay, you guys are making me screenshot my own chat so frequently to circle back. Root. Oh my god, best anime dad, you fiend. That's hilarious.
Matt Hughes, yeah.
That is hilarious. Guys, okay, you're giving me some homework, which I appreciated. I think Jeef is giving us a scenario. You insulted a merchant, they will not deal with you anymore, or they charge you extra.
Yeah. That's a fantastic example of consequences, yeah.
100%. There is no quicker hand wave I have than giving, like, all of a sudden he's actually a 6th level wizard. You know what I mean? It's like, cool, whole person. Yeah, no, 100%. Merchants definitely need to have an impact, and oftentimes they don't have superpowers. Stealing a valuable, same thing, Root. That's the same situation. Yeah, that's a great way.
Ban.
Yeah. Wait, say it one more time.
Ban that comment.
Latte, so happy you could join.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting there. That's so funny. Jeef, so happy rolling through. Talking shop. There's some great gaming tips being flung around. Appreciate that. Thank you, Matt Pro, for rolling through. And seriously, Latte, I obviously need to watch some videos on Minecraft raids. Like, I know that Jeef does that as well. I feel like such an idiot. Kevo, yes, get back here. Apparently everyone knows what's up about Minecraft's co-op other than me. That truly melted my face. Like, it was a long day, and I was like, I saw everyone's avatars roll in. I was like, what the What's going on?
It's so cool.
It was great. Flitty the Kitty, new NPC. Ooh, I love that map, bro. Flitty the Kitty is now canon somewhere, probably on multiple settings. That's hilarious. Is that actually a reference? That is so great. Jeef is classic. He's like, yo, dude, I mentioned that before she arrived. Ya doink. Yeah, that would break the audience's soul as well. But like you said, that's actually like very sweet and a huge compliment, because it just goes like how grounded the world is and how genuine the in-game connections are. Yeah, y'all's game is dope, man. I'm so glad y'all stream it. I'm including myself in that too. Yo, Bad Side Zero. That's hilarious. My bad.
That's the one to ban yet.
I was very excited, and that was so genuine for me.
I know.
Until I read it. Yeah, dude, honestly, just check out my website. It's called zippyfraud.boing. Just go there. It'll have all the information for you, Bad Side. I appreciate that. Okay, so before we move into ye old rapid fire, I do have just one sort of general kind of catch-all question, which I hope takes us an hour. I mean, or 5 minutes, whatever, or 2 seconds, does not matter. But has there been either a monster or a encounter that like is the one for you? Like sometimes you think about it, you're like, man, I built the plane, I gassed it up, and I landed it. That was nice. Like, what's that for you?
Oh, do you mean as a concept or one particular encounter that is so memorable?
You know, however the question lands with you.
However it lands with me. One particular monster?
And I don't mean it like it has to break the world. I more just mean like you mim, like you're like, oh man, you know.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think my favorite encounters are the ones that, or the scenarios that involve something happening in the nature or environment around the characters. Something that is happening, like, I'm thinking like, and I took inspiration from World of Warcraft and their raids. You know, there's usually something happening in the environment you have to be mindful of. So there's one, to give you an example, one of my favorite boss encounters that had a story capstone of these characters trying to find this pair of lovers who are trying to manipulate and learn and draw all the knowledge of the god of knowledge. They're standing on this platform that's deep within the ground, but this platform can be erupted and sent up into the air. So what the players did is they initiated that to the opposition of what these characters want, because these antagonists want this platform to stay on the bottom so they can do the ritual. The players go, no, it has to go up. But what they don't realize is it won't stop. So they're fighting these antagonists on this platform, and eventually it goes up into the air. And now they're up in the air fighting. And, you know, anytime the players are up in the air on something that can throw off characters, they're going to do it. And I prepared for that knowing that there are two dragons that are in opposition to one another. And each one of these dragons are allied with either the players or the antagonists. So what I said was, because I knew the players are going to jump off this platform at some point, they say, I'm going to throw.
That's so real. You're like, I know you're going to jump. I know you crazy motherfucker are going to jump.
They're always going to do it. And I said, you throw the antagonists, you throw them off the platform. You see them land on that dragon that you saw several sessions ago, and they go, damn it, I can't believe it. And, you know, the players are all mad that they're getting away. And then I say, but then you see your ally in the distance, which was actually a phoenix in this case. And they say, you see the phoenix arise, and they're like, we get on the phoenix because I'm immune to fire. And I'm, you know, now
that's sick.
We were originally in the dungeon, and now they're riding a phoenix chasing a dragon. And they're fighting with each other from distance using ranged attacks on these dragons. And the dragon and phoenix are also fighting each other. It was the craziest encounter.
I love the idea that they're having a battle, like they're having a combat and their map is having a combat as well, basically. Man, that sounds beautiful. What was the, like, when was that? What was the campaign? Like, I'm just curious about that moment.
This was a campaign that I had run from level 1 to 20. It took many, many years, and this is the same one that was in Neverwinter. And
with the druid that
almost died. That did die.
Yeah.
But that one took a long time, and it takes up that lot of build up to get there And what I wanted to do for that build up in this case was make them feel like they're in this dungeon that isn't going anywhere. So I said there are many statues here. There's a lot of graves here. You know, I'm trying to evoke anything that's permanent and deep and dark, so that when I say in the span of 12 seconds, you're up in the air and you can see all of Neverwinter below you. It's like, how did we get here?
Yeah, seriously, that acceleration would be so extreme. You're like, oh, that's fun, man. Well, we'll have to do this off stream, but I will continue planting the seed of me arriving as a minor villain.
Okay, I love that.
Let it be planted. Okay, guys, well, I know what we're here for. It's what I'm here for as well. It is known as Rapid Fire. So here's how it's going to go down, Mim. There are no wrong questions. I mean, wrong answers. There are plenty of wrong questions. All right, trust me. I have most of them written down. I'm like, don't say that. No, it basically is like binary questions, like, you know, cake or pie, but they're all D&D related. So, like I said, like, you know, feel free to just kind of rip off. There's no wrong way to do it. And are you ready, my prince?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, guys, buckle the up because it's time for rapid fire. So the first question: standard array, point buy, 4d6 drop lowest, or 3d6.
Roll if you're new. Otherwise, I like standard array.
Okay, love that answer. Do you call it a DM or a GM?
DM if it's Dungeons and Dragons. Otherwise, I'm normally saying GM.
Okay, so more dumb. Got it. Copy. Giants or dragons?
Ooh. Oh, that's so good. Dragons feels so archetypal that I gotta have them in. And now you just made me want to have giants fight them.
Dude, that's the fucking third act of my campaign. Is this war between the giants and dragons? Let's go. That's why I asked.
That's awesome.
Okay, dragons, man. I like it.
I always got to include dragons. It's in the game, man.
100%, man. Yeah, they don't call it Dungeons and Phoenix. You know what I'm saying? Okay, okay. But red dragon, blue dragon.
I know players always want to see a red dragon, but I want them to encounter the blue dragon.
Got you. Fair. Okay, frost or storm giant.
Ooh.
I know,
Frost
it's a full court
giant.
press, dog. Full court press.
I'm gonna say cloud, or you said storm giant, because I gotta put something in the sky to house them.
Yeah. How's the giants?
Yeah, how are they gonna fit?
That's hilarious. Yeah, storm giants control weather effect is fantastic. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, this entire DM question is essentially a vocal warm-up latte. Okay, spellcaster or melee?
Oh no. Melee.
Melee, okay. Dude, I did not see that coming. My boy's getting up close. D4 or D12?
Oh man. Okay, in 5th edition, D4. Anywhere else, D12.
I like that. Okay, I normally ask D8 or D12, but everyone always picks D12. And because you mentioned the D4 earlier, I was like, let's go. Plus, as a druid, I just low-key love D4s. Like, I'm guiding you, bro. Blessings.
Yeah,
Blessings.
Yeah, guidance. They're so good.
Okay, sorry. It's super fast. Rapid fire. Great axe or great sword?
Great sword.
Great sword.
Usually, great axes I want to like, but it usually goes to great sword.
Yeah.
And decorate it with something.
Let's go. The 2d6 aspect I like. Like, you're rolling 2 dice. Let's go. Elf or dwarf?
Elf or dwarf? Dwarf because they're always got stone cunning, which means there's lore and history to pull from.
Gotcha.
So, hey, dwarf, who are your parents? Where are they from?
Yeah. He's like, well, let me look at this rock. I'll get to the bottom of that. Yeah, you're totally right. Okay, tabaxi or tiefling?
I'm gonna say tiefling.
Tiefling.
Because
okay.
the link to Asmodeus, I always want to know.
Woo.
How do you deal with that?
Agreed. Like especially like 2nd, 3rd edition tieflings that are smelling like brimstone and, you know, like teleporting and cursing people. Okay, turtles or turtles? And be warned, we stand turtles on this show. That was a trick question.
Yeah, turtles.
That's the right answer. Okay, turtles it is. Okay, produce flame or firebolt?
Ooh, I'm gonna say produce flame because it's a cantrip.
Respect. Well, no, firebolt.
Firebolt.
Yeah.
Or Fireball. I'm gonna say Firebolt because it scales.
Okay. Ooh.
Oh, Fireball does too, though.
Yeah. Well, no. So it was produce flame or firebolt, both cantrips, but one.
Oh,
druid,
okay,
one...
gotcha. Produce flame.
Produce
More
flame. Gotcha.
versatility.
Oh, that's exactly what I was about to say. You can actually light stuff with it in that sense. Okay. Well put. Produce flame. It is healing word or cure wounds, dear cleric.
Healing word because bonus action.
Yeah. In the distance, I get that. Although I do like putting my hands on you. You good? We good?
Yeah.
Okay. Fireball or lightning bolt?
Fireball's so archetypal, but I always like to think in angles, which lends me to lightning bolt. And my character Mim used the lightning bolt.
Wow, let's go. Okay, I didn't know that was the origin of the name. That was truly going to be my send-off.
No, not the name, but he uses lightning bolt.
Okay, tight. Okay.
I'll tell you that later.
Yeah, great. They're both 8d6, but agreed, like the dimensions of it for me are really interesting because they give rise to such different situations, you know? Okay, Hunter's Mark or Hex?
Oh, that's so good. That's a good question. I want to be like Zephyr Strike. I think Hex.
Hex, okay, tight. Yeah, both have like cool little addendums, right? Like they're more than just damage. Tavern or brothel?
Change to Hunter's Mark. I want to change to
Hunter's Mark? Dude, I adore you, man. You're like, wait, fuck that. Go back.
The tracking. I love the tracking.
Yo, Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark it is.
All right. Tavern or brothel? I'm going to say tavern.
Tavern, cool. Classic, you know what you're getting. You can also probably get something to eat there. Okay, if someone attempts to sleight of hand one of your players, perception check or passive perception.
Say it again.
If someone attempts to sleight of hand one of your players, is that a perception check in your game from the player, or do you use the player's passive perception?
Oh, passive perception.
Cool. That's as written. That's how I do it too. I ask because some people are like, oh, dude, I would feel bad. Like they have to roll a perception check. I'm like, that's what passive perception is all about.
Yeah.
Wizard or sorcerer?
Sorcerer. I love the innateness of it. I do love wizards and their intellectualism, but there's something about the innateness that the only second character I usually played was a sorcerer. So yeah,
that's interesting. Sorcerer. I find it is typically tied to that. I myself go wizard only because I'm just like sort of like, yeah, we need to fix the education system. Okay, it shouldn't cost this much. No, but I feel that sorcerer has so many, and sorcery points are so cool to play with. Okay, cleric or warlock?
Cleric.
Oh, dude, I love that. Immediate shooting from the hip. No hezzy.
Cleric.
No look, no hezzy. Okay, fighter or paladin?
Paladin.
Paladin.
Because the healing.
So good. I like that. You got me on that. I don't know why after melee I was like, you're going fighter. Okay, druid or ranger?
Ranger.
Ranger, let's go!
Probably my second favorite class.
Dude, respect. I also have a soft spot. Like one of my first players was a ranger and we like fell in together. Okay, yes or no? Should cats have dark vision?
Yes.
Agreed. And final question of the rapid fire. Sweet beloved Mim111, yes or no? A nat 20 or a nat 1 is an auto success or an auto failure?
No.
Agreed.
Just no.
Yeah, I mean for an attack, obviously, but agreed. Yeah. There's nothing more chilling than being like for a total of.
Exactly.
And that concludes the rapid fire.
That was a good one.
Mim, you're a prince. Okay, I want to go through and see what everybody said. Jeeve goes, usually the only time I chase a dragon is when I'm in the bathroom of a Greyhound station. Hello. Accurate, my friend. Accurate. Are we in Oklahoma? Or we're in the border of Texas and Oklahoma? Are you living my life? Okay. Yes, exactly. Red leather, yellow leather, always an option. I have found that whenever you're naming NPCs or just talking about drow lore, it basically feels like a vocal warm-up. I'm like, yeah. Fireball for life. Love that, Mapro. Mapro goes Hex. Tavern. Latte says good to know. I imagine that's on the passive perception.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that in a little bit because I don't like to rob from all my players, but they know like anytime I'm like, you're in a thick crowd, they're like, okay. Mapro going wizard, respect, same. Fighter, same. Oh shoot, I should have answered them too. Whoops. You know what? Hey, Latte, we're gonna have to
have Latte on.
Seriously, I realized that in this chat, I was like, I need to just go through and get like half the fucking chat. I love you guys rolling through, and I want to know how you guys do it. So I'm gonna be sliding into people's whispers. Fear not. But Mim, before I let you go, man, and thank you so much, man, for just like being so generous with your time. I feel like you've been so generous to me as just as a person, like a streamer. You've just been very kind and generous to me, dude. It's meant a lot to me.
Thanks.
I want to know about how we can best support you, where we can find you. But I want to tangentially just sort of let my ADD kick in, because it seems like, have you not stolen from your players? Because I cannot recommend that enough. Thank you, Latte, truly.
Sorry, you want to know if I've stolen from my players?
Yeah. Like, is that a device that you are reticent to use, or is it like, let's go? Okay, cool.
I've definitely told players on many occasions, not on many occasions, I've definitely told my players, you go to reach for your coins, and they're missing.
There you go. Watch out where you're hanging out.
You can ask Latte, because I know they'll remember being in Baldur's Gate, and one of our player characters, Zilphine, had their coins stolen. So yeah.
That's great. It's like, what's Aura's passive perception?
I don't think Aura's been robbed.
That is so great. Kevo, thank you, man. I believe I just started following you from Mim's last stream, I think, maybe, but I need to double check that, because I appreciate that. And if Mim is a connector, then I'm rolling through that connection. Couldn't second that comment enough. But I let me stop from cutting off my own question. How do we find you, Mim? How do we best support you, man?
Yeah, sure. So it's Mim111 here on Twitch and on Twitter, Instagram, or my website, mimswell.com, TikTok, Hover, YouTube, all Mim111 or Mimswell. And the best way to support me, though, I will say, is to keep doing what's inspiring you and keep bringing yourself out here to engage and ask questions, because what you're doing here and bringing me on and giving an audience and a space, these are the things that help not only support me, but give a space for everyone else you're seeing come in chat, ask questions, and hang out and be part of the community. Doing things like that is what I'm very thankful for and grateful for. So also everyone in chat, whether you're lurking and just listening or leaving comments too, all that is so supportive and so meaningful, and you need to know that leaves a long-lasting impact, not just on me, but yourself and all the other people around, to let them know that there's a community on here online. It is very excited. We're all loving to be here with each other and want to hear your story. I hope to hear your stories. And come by my channel and let me know what characters you play.
That is so sweet. And you can find Mim streaming a couple times a week, usually. The at Mim111 is also his Twitch handle. Fantastic guy. Yeah, what's up with the podcast, Mim?
Yeah, tomorrow on Altruistic Latte, usually on Thursdays we chat. We have guests on. We'll be chatting D&D. We like to kind of go off the cuff a lot of the times. We'll have our thematic anchors as well. I think we'll be talking about character creation tomorrow, I think.
Cool. I will be tuning in for that, I know, because usually Thursday is a kind of a desk day for me, which I'm able to catch it for most reasons. I just want to shout out all you guys real quick, because I'm glad you guys are on here. Jeef, you're next, dude. Everyone's about to get rolled. I told Mim this, and I know, Jeef, you've already heard this, and anyone joining, especially like the new people rolling through, thank you so much for that raid. That was so extremely generous. I made it to affiliate, guys. Like, let's go. Woo! I'm pumped. Like, we did it. Let's go.
Getting that founder's badge as soon as I can.
Let's go. But what really like buoyed me and absolutely sent me on the way a couple months ago was whenever you and Latte raided me. Like that was one of the first D&D streams I'd done. It was with my good buddy Brandon, who's an illustrator and a very talented actor and voice artist. But man, I can't even tell you. Like, it was, I just, the community on Twitch is something that I just really want to pay into, and it is so contrary to how some people want to create, typically in Los Angeles and Hollywood, which is the opposite of that and quite cringe. So I just appreciate you guys like practicing what you preach, because it is extremely apparent. So I don't know, you guys are rad, and thank you for that, Game and Aaron. Thank you for all of you guys for truly supporting me and following. I'm going to do a brief shout out of my boy Mim. just because I like seeing what random clip they bring up. God, let it be Subnautica.
Right.
Come on.
All right, hang on a moment here.
Throwback. Yes.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Look at that sweater. This raid, for some reason, raids always have this problem of fighting.
Oh, this is about to be me in 4 minutes. Whenever I'm looking like a 90-year-old man trying to function on the raid. Oh, you're telling the future is what you're doing, Mem. That is so good. I also want to shout out Jeeve and Altruistic Latte. They are members of the same campaign, which play under Mim's direction. But Latte runs an amazing podcast, which basically runs every Thursday. So what's going on? Oh, yes. Here we go. Oh, let's fucking go. Is this Souls?
I don't know. I guess leave it on the table.
Yes.
Did you guys see that?
Ah! I don't think she was talking to the skeletons. I don't think they were leaving anything on the table there. I don't think so. Oh, and now for the real shout out. My boy Jeeve. Dude, listen, Jeeve. I know that you watched the first episode of Coffee Cops, dude. I know that because I individually track every viewer. There's nothing truly more meaningful than whenever you dropped some quote into the chat. I was like, give me an absolute break. Okay. Yes. What shall the time capsule bring us of ye old yeef?
Yeah. It'll be good.
Yeef us.
Outdoors doesn't mean I'm accepting of all.
Perfect.
I wish my streams were this lit.
Jeeve, you are such a beast. You are such a beast. I mean, there it is. If you're not clicking subscribe, wake up, people. Jeeve, truly, you are such a peach. Okay.
Before you sign off, Carp, I wanted to say
Yes.
thank you for coming on Twitch and making the space that you have here. You have a lot of good, positive energy, and I hope that carries on when you're off performance and you're in your own downtime, when you go to have dinner, that you know that you've had a positive influence on people. But I hope that also reflects to yourself and that you're able to feel like yourself here, because I know a lot of the people I connect to on here as well appreciate that genuineness and being able to foster that environment that really wants to just genuinely have a good time. And your energy has been very nice to see on Twitch. People like you are what I hope we have more of. So thank you for being here.
That's so sweet of you. It means a lot to me. Truly, Mike. Like, thank you for that. I do. Like, I have really felt like people are comfortable with me being a spazzy, improv-y little 11-year-old child. You know what I mean? But it's so fun, man. I mean, truly, the whole thing with Twitch was I was like, I just like DMing and I like creating characters and voicing them. And I feel like there is a way to do that and create space while also doing it. So thank you, man. It's extremely generous.
Of course.
Well, this is what's about to happen. I'm about to go, well, that's all, folks. Thanks for joining us.